Good morning to you. Keir Starmer has met former President Donald Trump in New York overnight.
It's the first time the PM's met with a Republican presidential candidate, and speaking to GB News before their meeting, Trump was full of praise.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
Meanwhile, in New York, as tensions rise in the Middle East, Keir Starmer called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in his first address to the United Nations.
Escalation serves no one. It offers nothing but more suffering for innocent people on all sides, and the prospect of a wider war that no one can control.
Forget Brexit. Could Boris Johnson have stopped Megxit? Well, the former PM reveals his manly pep talk with Prince Harry to try and convince the royal couple to stay in the UK.
A Norfolk couple is fined after reporting a migrant had snuck into their vehicle on their way back from France. We're debating whether the fine is fair or bureaucracy gone mad.
Twisted justice. Police reveal 19 women reported rape or sexual assault against ex-Harrods boss Mohammed Al Fayed. So why was he never arrested?
Good morning. Tottenham overcome traffic problems and a red card to prevail in the Europa League. And Manchester City may have been handed an unexpected boost in their fight against the 115 charges for breaking the Premier League's financial rules. More later.
There's still some heavy rain around at the moment, but it is clearing away, and for most it's going to be a much drier, much brighter, but also colder day. Join me later for all today's weather details and a look at Saturday.
Just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Now, as you know, we are all masters of fashion on this channel, particularly Nana Aquia, I think. But there's something in the papers this morning about fashion, and iconic fashion things. Number one, Levi 501s. I do have a pair of those.
Oh, do you?
I do.
So you are very stylish.
They're the most uncomfortable and unflattering jeans I've ever bought, and I never wear them as a result.
You probably bought them in about 1986,
No, I
didn't
didn't.
you?
I only bought them a couple of years ago.
Remember who was in the advert in the
It was
in
Nick,
the laundrette?
It was
Laundrette.
Nick Thingamajig, wasn't it?
Yeah, he used to go out in Madonna, Nick Kamen.
Nick Kamen, that's him.
I think he
took
died.
all his clothes off.
He died about 6 years ago.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, this is meant to be one of the most iconic styles of all time, the Levi 501s. They were introduced to the masses in 1939, worn by the likes of Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
So that's number one. There's a list of 20 items. I think some are questionable. UGG boots comes in at number 13.
Bit 2007, aren't they?
I wouldn't call that a design for the ages, would you?
No, I've seen some more sort of more intricate designs recently though. 'Cause it used to be like a classic thing, didn't it? I was asked by a former partner of mine to go and fetch some back. I didn't realise how expensive they were.
They are quite expensive, to be fair.
They're ugly.
Very comfortable, but they are very ugly.
Yeah.
I don't actually own many of these items, which is a bit concerning.
Well, I don't know. Plain white T-shirt.
I've got one of those.
Everyone's got plain white
Converse
T-shirt.
All-Star trainers, number 5. I've got one of those. A green Barber jacket. Got one of those. Louboutin heels. Vans trainers. Do you have Vans trainers?
No.
I remember that again, sort of more 90s really, skater.
Yeah, that's quite
skater
90s,
stuff, isn't it?
yeah.
I only heard of Vans about 3 years ago.
Another questionable one coming in at number 15.
I was going to say
Crocs.
15. Yeah, Crocs.
Now, that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, I know what they are. I've not seen them though.
They shouldn't be allowed outside the
I don't
house.
own a pair.
They're
Too
house
casual
shoes.
for me.
They're house shoes.
They're meant to be.
Garden
They're
shoes.
meant to be very comfortable.
I'm surprised you don't own a pair.
I do not own a
He
pair.
likes comfort.
I do it more for comfort.
Bizarre, Mr. Dixon.
A Mary Quant miniskirt.
Oh, that is a classic, to be fair.
Or Chanel's little black dress.
I'd
anyway,
like one of those.
So it's all designs for the ages, apparently. So if you're particularly stylish this morning at 6 o'clock, let us know. Send us a picture.
Yeah, and if you've had something in your wardrobe for 20, 30, 40 years, let us know what it is as well.
Oh, is that what it is? It's
What
stuff
should
that
be
you
in the
don't...
list? Yeah, the timeless items, the classic items.
Yeah,
in the
but do you
wardrobe.
still fit in them 20 or 30
That's
years
also
later?
a great question. Do you fit into your classic items?
Well done if you do, honestly.
Yeah, well done if you do, exactly. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Right, let's crack on with the main news this morning. And the Prime Minister has overnight met with the former President, Donald Trump, in efforts to establish a new international relationship.
Well, it concludes Sir Keir Starmer's three-day trip to New York after attending the United Nations annual meeting of world leaders.
Well, in his address, he warned fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has the potential to spill into a wider war that no one can control.
Well, GB News' political editor Christopher Hope has the latest from New York.
Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK this morning after a rush round of diplomacy in New York City during the UN General Assembly. He's been trying to get a 3-week ceasefire deal between Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon and Israel to get UK citizens out there, get Brits out there. There's 2 warships in the region. Cyprus is available. Real worry about the future of British citizens in Lebanon. Also with Ukraine, he's been trying to talk to President Zelensky, get some kind of agreement between the West on this victory plan put forward by President Zelensky. He's due to meet, that's President Zelensky, with Donald Trump on Friday, lunchtime UK time. A crucial meeting because if Trump wins the election on November the 5th, many fear that he may push Ukraine towards a peace deal they don't want with Russia. On Thursday night, Keir Starmer was due to meet with Donald Trump finally. And for GB News, I asked Donald Trump a question here in Trump Tower.
You're meeting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government have been quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? Yeah. But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
And would you rather Nigel Farage?
Who are you with?
I'm with GB News in the UK.
Okay, good.
Would you rather Nigel Farage had a bigger role?
Well, I think Nigel is great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He had a great election, too. He picked up a lot of seats, more seats than he was allowed to have, actually. They acknowledge that he won, but for some reason you have a very strange system over there. You might win him, but you don't get him. Nigel is a fantastic person.
So a big boost there for Nigel Farage, his old friend Donald Trump, of course, being pleasant. But this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK, battling with more issues about the so-called freebies he's been taking and how he can try and get a lid on that. It's a challenging time for him, but for him, for now, Sir Keir Starmer's time in the US has come to an end. Christopher Hope, Trump Tower, New York City.
Well, let's talk to political commentator Theo Usherwood, who's here. Good to see you this morning.
Very good.
Look, in some respects, I'm slightly surprised that Trump has been as diplomatic as he has been.
Yes.
I mean, quite rightly so. He's a candidate and he's meeting an elected Prime Minister. But he was surprisingly diplomatic.
He was surprisingly diplomatic, and I'll point you to 2 comments previously. First one, quite recently, actually, by Angela Regal, the Home Office Minister, when she said that Trump had his vitriol, he'd fueled vitriol against migrants on social media. And then, of course, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, when he was in opposition, described Donald Trump as a neo-Nazi sociopath. So but you know, those are serious criticisms. Interestingly, on the plane over, by all accounts, the Prime Minister was distancing himself from the comments by Angela Regal, not endorsing those comments by any stretch. And, they are 2 very different people, Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. They are polar opposites, aren't they, if you look at that news conference compared to when you listen to Keir Starmer speak. And so it is a good thing that Donald Trump was so diplomatic. I mean, Karen Pierce, our ambassador, the UK ambassador to Washington, has worked very hard, by all accounts, to try and build relationships with Team Trump since the election of Keir Starmer. So, this is a positive thing, and they enjoyed a 2-hour dinner together last night and looking to establish a relationship that previously wasn't there.
Wow, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall? That sort of dinner. What have you made of this trip to New York by Sir Keir Starmer? I guess the headline would be this call for a ceasefire from allied nations. Do you think there is any way that we can step back from the brink of all-out war?
Well, when you look at the response, of course, from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, when he said that Israel does not want to stop the offensive until all of the objectives, Israel's objectives, have been achieved. It's very difficult to see how this call it's coming mainly from Joe Biden in the White House, and of course the French as well, for a 21-day ceasefire. That seems to have been roundly rejected by Israel's government. They want to achieve the objectives. This isn't just a defensive campaign. This is about trying to neutralise Hezbollah in Lebanon and to protect Israel's northern border. And they, going by what Benjamin Netanyahu says, they want to fulfil the objectives.
Can I take you back to the US election? Why has Starmer met Trump when he doesn't know? Is there anything on the agenda to meet Kamala Harris? Is it an expectation of who they think is going to win, or...?
No, I think it's hedging, isn't it? When you think the relationship is already there when it comes to Labour and the Democrats, he met Biden. They had a very warm phone call after Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. The relationship, is as good as it possibly can be between Labour, Keir Starmer, and the US Democrats and the Biden administration. But of course, there is we're a few weeks away now from the American elections at the beginning of November. There is a very realistic chance that Donald Trump is going to become President of the United States again, and it's incumbent on Keir Starmer to ensure that there is a relationship there. Now, of course, will it be the same as the special relationship that was originally fostered between Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher? Probably not. But nevertheless, America is a close ally of this country, and Keir Starmer recognises, and Number 10 recognises, that there does need to be cordial relations, especially given the likely conversations we're going to have, and where does Britain fit into that when it comes to war in Ukraine, the Middle East, and ensuring that, Keir Starmer was adamant about this when he talked about, wanting to be on the world stage, giving speeches at the United Nations like he has done in New York. But to do that, he needs to have some sort of, good relationship with the President of the United States, regardless which party they come from or who they might be.
And Keir Starmer was asked yesterday what his message would be to Donald Trump, and he says he wants to meet both candidates, got the opportunity to meet Trump, which is good. Obviously, he still wants to speak to Kamala Harris as well. But in terms of the special relationship, it is interesting, isn't it, that Keir Starmer is talking about establishing a relationship. And is that because they are coming from such polar opposite sides of the political spectrum? And if Donald Trump does get into the White House again, how do you think things will stand with the likes of Foreign Secretary David Lammy when he's previously calling him a neo-Nazi sociopath?
It's a very difficult one, Ellie, and you're quite right to raise that. And it may be that when Keir Starmer looks at things in the new year, and let's say that Trump wins the election, and there suddenly becomes a breakdown in relations between the UK and the US, that actually Keir Starmer looks at his top team and thinks, how do I improve this? What do I do to improve this? And that there might be potentially a reshuffle where, Keir Starmer looks at somebody who would get on better with a Trump administration. The relationship, I think, is so important that it's bigger than any personalities. And if the personalities aren't working, then the personalities will need to be changed.
Interesting. Theo, good to see you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. Well, let's stick to the Middle East theme, should we? Because, as we were saying, Sir Keir Starmer has called for an immediate ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel at the UN annual meeting of world leaders.
So we are ready to step up in a spirit of respect and equal partnership. I don't claim that solving these problems is easy, but there are positive, practical things that we can do together. This starts with addressing the rising tide of conflict and preventing a regional war in the Middle East. I call on Israel and Hezbollah, stop the violence, step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire.
Well, his speech followed Israel launching its biggest offensive against Lebanese-based militia and terror group Hezbollah.
Well, it began with the detonation of thousands of pages. The following day, walkie-talkies, where hundreds of people in Lebanon were killed, thousands forced to flee.
Well, joining us live to discuss this is Lebanese citizen Omar Mezhir. Really good to see you this morning, Omar. And tell us about the situation on the ground in Lebanon. How are your family, how are your friends feeling at this time?
Hi, thank you guys for having me. Family and friends are all feeling a bit worried, stressed. You guys made some good points before I hopped on. We'd really like to see a ceasefire. We don't know where things are going. Things have changed from what has happened previously between Hezbollah and Israel, and it's going into a big unknown or a grey area, as if you may.
I know it's a difficult question because the reality on the ground is any offensive from Israel and any increased offensive is always hugely problematic and very dangerous for ordinary citizens. However, do you understand where Israel's coming from when they face this constant threat and constant pressure from a group like Hezbollah?
For sure, it's definitely understandable to feel the threat and pressure from a militant group, as you can say. But there's one thing that maybe we can also identify is that Hezbollah is called Hezbollah. Hezb is actually a political party. So that's one thing that people aren't able to discern between terrorists and then a political party, unfortunately. And what Hezbollah is not only a terrorist group, it's actually a political party that's multi-tiered, and it has several sub-organizations within it, including schools, hospitals, and even just political parties that are not necessarily armed as well. So that's also a view or perspective to consider as well.
Well, yeah, and as you say, it's an important perspective, but it raises questions, doesn't it, about a political party that is supporting terrorism. And we had the same issue over here with Sinn Féin and what was in effect their armed wing, the IRA.
Of course, again, violence is never the option to solve anything. We always try to strive for peace and successful negotiations and talks between the two parties. If peace cannot be achieved, at least some sort of civility. So terrorism is never a good option to solve any problem, in my opinion.
How realistic do you think it could be that there could be a diplomatic settlement to all of this, that we can step back from the brink of all-out war?
You know, based on what we've seen so far, I don't mean to drag the conversation into another topic, but the past year between Gaza and Israel, it seems like it's not a very easy road to go down, unfortunately, and that really puts down a lot of people, especially in Lebanon, because they don't want to go down this path. I'm not sure if you're aware of where the state of the country is right now. Economically, the country crashed in 2019, roughly 2020, and then the COVID crisis hit. And then there wasn't a very good reignition of everything back in Lebanon, and we had a huge hyperinflation of our currency. So caused a lot of brain drain, as some scholars would say. And unfortunately, it's been very hard to rebuild. So going down that road of a non-diplomatic solution can cause a lot of negative impact, especially to people in Lebanon and also people in Israel, by the way, because we don't want to see casualties on either side.
Omar, really good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Cheers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I mean, you've got to remember, I mean, I can see the political arguments, I can see the military arguments for all this. It's about the real people, though, who actually have nothing to do with any of this. And that's the problem.
I've got a British friend who lives in Lebanon, and she was saying, or describing, the sense of paranoia that there is amongst normal people in Lebanon since the pager attack and the walkie-talkie attack. Even if, obviously, you're not anything to do with Hezbollah, you could be in a shopping centre, in a lift or in a plane, in a car, with somebody who does have one of those booby-trapped items on you, and there's a real sense of paranoia, which perhaps you wouldn't think about, but it's there. It's tangible.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
if you've got any views on that, gbnews.com/you'll say. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom at 6:18.
Scotland Yard has issued a call for any potential victims of Mohammed Al-Fayed to come forward. Police have revealed that they will explore if anyone else could be pursued for criminal offences following abuse allegations against the former Harrods boss. It comes as it's been revealed that 19 women reported the rape or sexual assault whilst the former Harrods boss was alive.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met President Biden in New York after the US pledged $8 billion in further military aid to Kyiv. Zelensky arrived in the States to present his victory plan to American leaders, pledging bold action to end the war. He also met Vice President Harris and is going to have a meeting with Donald Trump today.
A man has been arrested in connection with a cyber attack targeting railway stations across the UK. People logging onto Wi-Fi at 19 stations yesterday were greeted with a page about terrorist attacks. The man in question is understood to be an employee of a technology company that provides internet access to some Network Rail stations.
Right, there's still plenty of time to try to get your hands on £36,000 in our Great British Giveaway.
Yep, it's like having an extra £3,000 in your bank account each month for a whole year, which means, essentially, the next year could be on us. Here's how you can make all of that tax-free cash yours.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
£30,000 cash? Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Yes, you see, that is absolutely fantastic.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, the first thing on in my mind when I heard about this is, what has this country come to when we're talking about getting kids as young as 6 years old to be jabbed weekly or however often it is because they are too fat? Where are the parents in all of this? There's three things actually here that are important. Number one is we do not know the long-term consequences of these jabs. So if I had a child and I was going to let them have the jab, I would be feeling like I'm treating them like a lab rat, to be quite honest with you, because we don't know the long-term consequences. Secondly, the manufacturers are clear that some of the potential side effects can be very serious. We're talking about potentially pancreatitis, let's get my word out, and also it lists as a potential side effect thyroid cancer. Arguably, it's called the gamble jab, to be honest with you, because of these potential side effects at the moment. And then thirdly, I come back to the parents. Where are the parents in all of this? Because they are the role models. So it really is about parenting, and it's about parenting from being a role model yourself in terms of being slim and healthy and not expecting a jab to take your place and other people to take your place. If you have children, they are your responsibility. Think before you breed. The other thing you need to remember with this is when you stop taking that jab, it is highly likely that you're going to put all the weight back on. Now, the thought of a child of 6 years of age, starting with that jab, conditioning them mentally to live with that jab, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely not on.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, the weather is grim, isn't it? I'm fed up with it.
Me too, but I think the answer is you just need to stay in, get cosy and watch GB News.
Oh, there you go.
Make yourself a cuppa.
Well, there is plenty of flash flooding about, actually. The Met Office issuing an amber weather warning across the Midlands and the south of England.
Well, according to the Tornado and Storm Research Organisation, the country could also experience lightning and even isolated tornadoes.
And, of course, that's all going to mean train delays, cancellations, interruption to bus services, motorways will be very... Well, the motorways are very slow at the moment because of all the surface water and things. So it's just horrible, basically.
Well, we're joined now by meteorologist at Weather Trending, John Hammond. Good to see you this morning,
Hi, Ellie.
John. So what can we expect to see over the weekend? It looks a pretty dismal picture.
Yeah, God, you don't need me to tell you the atmosphere is in a very volatile state at the moment, is it not? And sort of good news, bad news I've got to give you, really, because although you mentioned an amber weather warning, that has just expired. So in the short term, the worst is probably over in terms of the most torrential rain, which has afflicted parts of England and Wales in particular over the last several days. You know what? Some parts of the Midlands have already had their wettest month on record and have had more rain than you'd normally expect in a typical autumn in its entirety. And autumn has only just begun, has it not? So it's no surprise that we've seen the scale of flooding, particularly across parts of the Midlands. Now, as I mentioned, things in the short term getting a little bit better. The amber warning has expired. Still plenty more rain to come through this morning across the more southern and central parts of England and Wales, but not the intense downpours. I think the risk of thunderstorms is diminishing. The risk of tornadoes, isolated though they will be, that will diminish as well. But a dreary old day across southern counties with further rain at times, which is not going to help the clear up operation. And on that note, actually, although the rain will start to ease off, of course, floodwaters in some places are continuing to rise. There's always a lag between what comes out of the sky and how long it takes that water to flow out into the sea. So I just checked, there are over 60 flood warnings across the country, focused, as I mentioned, across parts of the Midlands and northeast England, which saw a deluge yesterday. Some of those flood warnings, I think, will increase in number, as I say, because we have that lag for all that water to escape into sea. So these sorts of scenes, which you can see on the screen right now, I think will continue to afflict some parts of the country. In terms of the forecast for the weekend, I do have good news, because chillier but drier, brighter weather will push down from the north today. So the skies will eventually brighten even across some southern areas as we end the day. And actually for the weekend, we've got a window of finer weather, quieter weather, crisper, colder weather, but some welcome sunshine, particularly through Saturday and for a time on Sunday as well. But I'm afraid to say that beyond that, as we look towards late Sunday into Monday and Tuesday, you guessed it, another deep area of low pressure is going to push in off the Atlantic, and we could see a repeat performance of more disruptive rainfall through the early part of next week. I don't want to be the harbinger of doom too much. We've got to nail down the detail, but the components are there for further quite prolonged and heavy rain through the early part of next week. So watch this space. There could be further weather warnings issued, certainly as we go into Monday and Tuesday, I'm afraid.
You're always the harbinger of doom.
I know,
John,
that's why you get me on.
John, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. I'll tell you what this means.
What does it mean?
It means for your weekend plans, go to the pub. Support your local. Because you know so many pubs are closing down.
You're very good at supporting your local.
I like to go to the pub. It's nice. And I don't even drink anymore. But, you know...
still there, there's no excuse.
Still there. You get your alcohol-free beers and all that, so I think it's quite good. Anyway, Tony Hadley, who is a legend, Spandau Ballet.
Oh, yeah.
Gold!
Gold.
His local boozer, which is called The 100, closed last year. Anyway, he's got behind a big campaign to reopen it, and they've raised £250,000. It's in Ashenden in Buckinghamshire, and they've reopened it. They just need tenants now to run it, but he's also promised that when the official opening happens, he will perform on the opening night.
Well, we should all get down there, I think.
I mean, that will be a night when this is reported in the Sun this morning. So Tony Hadley, who I just think is a legend. He's a really nice man.
Oh.
We should try and get him on, actually.
Yeah, we should ask him about that.
It's a terrific
if it's close
bloke.
by, you should get down and support it.
Yeah, I don't know where the official opening night is. It doesn't say. But anyway, he's 64. Wow.
We'll have to ask Tony. Tony will have all the details.
He will have all the details, but what a terrific fella with a voice like silk.
Yeah, like butter.
Ooh.
Melted butter. Gold.
I'll tell you what I was listening to this morning, talking about...
No, you'll be listening to Nikki French.
Nikki French.
Yep.
No, I wasn't listening to Nikki French. I was listening to Cass Elliot, Mama Cass. You won't know who that is. But honestly, because she's been dead 50 years. She was only 32. It's terrifying, isn't it? But that was... She was looking her up now. I'll play you a video in the break.
OK.
Anyway,
It'll be an education.
So if you're a Mama Cass fan, I'd like to hear from you this morning as well. Beautiful voice. Anyway, right, should we have a look at the weather forecast? The official one is Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry, the overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, one or two developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also one or two scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, why did Tottenham's match last night start 35 minutes late? Any idea why?
Is it a joke?
Well, it sounds like a joke, but it's not actually. I think that it did actually happen.
Oh, I don't know. Why did Tottenham's match start 35 minutes late?
Actually don't know, but Aidan McGee's going to tell us all about it next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Bedfordshire, the A6 is closed southbound from Bletsoe to Bedford because of flooding, with the A421 still closed in both directions because of flooding off the A6 between Deep Marshallese roundabout at Kempston and junction 13 of the M1. The M1 in Hertfordshire is closed northbound, while overnight roadworks have overrun between junctions 5 and 6. From Watford to Bricket Wood. The M5 in Gloucestershire is closed in both directions because of flooding. Southbound's closed from junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowfield turn, to junction 15 for the M4, causing roughly 2 miles of queues from the Micklewood services. Northbound's closed from junction 16 at Aztec West to junction 14. And in Berkshire, the A4 is closed westbound along London Road in Reading towards the Southseas roundabout because of flooding.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So can I just say that I've been having an education about Mama Cass, and I do know her song. Make your own kind of music.
Yeah. I can't.
Legend.
I was just thinking. Apparently, loads of you got in touch about Mama Cass, and I can't log in to gbnews.com/yours say
But we will get them printed
at the moment, so I have to have them printed out.
We will get access to them somehow.
I mean, beautiful, beautiful voice.
No, what a legend. And also, Dream a Little Dream of Me, I didn't realise. That's Mamas and the Papas and Mamas.
Mamas and
Papas. It says there the Papas and the Mamas.
Yeah, well, that's...
I'm actually just reading what's in front of me. Yeah, but that's great.
There
She's
you go.
great. So
There you go.
I've
It's
had an
nice.
education, thank you.
So we've had a little sing-song in the break, which has been nice. We've been making our own kind of music.
We have.
Right.
Can I just say too on fashion?
Oh, yes, go on.
Because we were talking about fashion earlier, weren't we? And these are the most iconic styles of all time. It's a list in the Daily Mail today, 20 items which are designs for the ages. We've had one in from Mike who says, are Doc Martens and Ben Sherman shirts on the list?
Doc Martens are in if they're cherry red. They've got to be cherry red.
Black, yeah. And a Ben Sherman...
It's the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite 90s, to be fair. Ben Sherman shirts aren't on there, but a Fred Perry polo shirt comes in at number 14.
Sean's got a pair of black Farrah trousers from the late 80s. They're older than Ellie. But can you still get in them, Sean?
Yes, that's what we want to know.
Stay-pressed trousers?
No.
They were the ones he just didn't have to iron. They were kind of just after Farrah's. But on Ben Sherman's, I hadn't worn a button-down shirt since the late 90s. I just didn't like them. And then I've just suddenly revived this one. Over the
Times
last
have changed.
They have, yeah. Come back in.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've what's that down the front?
Where?
You've got a big stain on your thumb.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I should haven't watched it since the late 90s.
Yeah, well, no, that's probably about right. Well, as long as we know what it is. You took us that tea, darling.
Yes, we can.
So just so we have a chit-chat. I'm gasping for a cuppa.
Aidan, that's a nice colour, actually. Well done, Eva. Aidan, we were asking before the break, why did Tottenham Hotspur kick off 35 minutes late? And it sounds like the start of a joke, but it's real life, isn't it?
It's real life. It was a fiasco.
Oh, was
actually,
it?
Yeah, I mean, there are strict rules governing teams turning up on time for their matches. That's because there are rules that the UEFA, who govern the Europa League competition, say that teams have to turn up 75 minutes before kick-off. And, of course, these are broadcast live as well. It interferes with TV schedules. They pay big money to go there. Now, get this, Karabag, that's a peculiar name for a team, isn't it?
Abajani team.
That's right. They flew from Baku, right, which is 2,600 miles. And it was a 6-hour flight. It took them longer than that, 6.5 hours last night to travel from their hotel in Stratford, East London, to Tottenham High Road, which is North East London. Everybody knows the area, don't you?
Well, that's the state of the capital for you, eh?
Well, there are problems on Greater Anglia trains. The part of the A10 was closed. I was offered a ticket for these games, for this game, about 4 of them actually, at 4 o'clock.
That's why you didn't go. You never
well, yeah, I never got there, exactly. But that's probably what I was offered for, because it was probably from somebody who was stuck in the traffic. But there was also, it was gridlock around the high road itself. There were problems on the M25. It just caused massive problems on the eastern half.
That's quite embarrassing, isn't it?
It is indeed. And then Glenn Hoddle, who is now must be in his 60s, Peter Crouch, they were in a car because they were working for TNT doing match analysis on the live coverage, and they had to abandon the car on the high road and leg it down the high road to get to the game. So it was a fiasco overall.
It's not a place to leave your Rolls Royce, that is it?
Tottenham High Road. No, you know what? When that stadium was rebuilt, or not rebuilt, when they built the new one probably 5 years ago.
It's a great stadium.
It's magnificent, but I did fear that the same old problems that dogged the place for the previous 30, 40 years would still be there, and they are. It's a nightmare to get to. I know a friend of mine who's got. Well, I know a couple of companies who've got corporate provision there, and they're thinking of switching to Arsenal next season just because it's a little bit easier to get to. So something. Having said that,
anyway, who won?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So 3-0 to Tottenham. They survived a sending off in the first half of Radu Dragozan. And you're not normally so interested in the game.
Yeah, I know one.
Yeah, 3-0 to Tottenhm. So it's a league situation, so they're not actually through or anything like that. But yeah, it was a fiasco overall, no question about that. And there'll be questions to answer for Karabakh, who'll probably get fined, I would have thought.
All right.
OK. Man U?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, he's been delivering a talk to the Oslo business community. So that well-known bastion of football knowledge. But no, you know what? He was just asked, I think, whether he would manage Manchester United again. And he just seems to have said, I don't know what he's meant to say in this situation. He's not going to say, oh, well, I don't really fancy it. I've done it once. I'm not doing it again. But he said, if the United family wanted me to manage the club again, I would say yes every single day of the week. Now, fairly innocuous, harmless comments, you would think, but it does pile pressure onto Erik ten Hag, his successor, because he's having a really bad time. They've lost 2 of the first 5 games. They were really uninspiring the other night against FC 20. He said afterwards as well, I think the team lacked hunger. Now, if you're the manager and you're saying that your team lacked hunger, then I don't really know where that leaves you, Ellie, because that's basically saying that you can't motivate them.
You're not a chef, aren't you, basically?
Well, yeah, exactly. Ruud Gullit said afterwards his fellow Dutchman, he was saying that the United players look as if they're ignoring their manager. They're not responding to instructions. So if you've got a club legend, and somebody didn't disgrace himself as a manager of Manchester United in the 3.5 years he was there, he took them to the Europa League final, got them to the runners-up in the Premier League as well. When he says, I'd like to manage the club again, I just think that, in view of everything else that's going on, Stephen, it's not handy for a manager of a club as big as Man United. Knowing how these quotes travel far and wide when it's Manchester United, because it's such a big club, I think it's unhelpful, to say the least.
Yeah, right. We've just got time to squeeze in Manchester City and their legal battle.
Yes, well, the 115 charges, the hearing's going on in secret at the moment. We don't know when we're going to have a verdict. We think before the end of the year. Then there'll be challenges, so goodness me, it'll probably be next year before we get a resolution on this. But the Premier League wanted to impose these rules about associated party transactions. So what that meant, they wanted to get a grip on clubs doing deals with companies who are associated with the owners. So, because what that does in effect, and this is something I found when I was in Manchester, when Etihad started sponsoring City, for example, it was a company related to the club, and sometimes the suspicion can be that maybe you could inflate those deals and make them look bigger than they actually are. And it's in your interest in FFP and profit and sustainability, Ellie, that you need to make your incomings look larger than your outgoings. A little bit like doing a tax return, I suppose.
Yeah,
and so they've challenged this. Yes, exactly. They challenged this City and they've won. And that just means that it might knock out some of those 115 charges. It might benefit them long term. We'll see.
OK. Aidan, thank you very much indeed. We shall see you later on. You've just got time to sponge down that strange stain on your shirt.
I'll look at
and we'll see you later on.
Thank you. You've been very good with the stain removal tips this morning. It's been helping the whole team with their stain questions. If you've got any, send them in, gbnews.com/you'll-say, and Stephen will tell you how to get them out.
There's not a stain I can't remove,
it's
let
true.
me tell you.
It's actually true.
All right, we've got the papers heading away in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
EasyJet is launching a new recruitment drive focused on attracting cabin crew members over 50 and those even considering retirement.
Well, the initiative is called Returnships and is inspired by research that suggests that 75% of people over 50 years old believe that now is the ideal time to embark on a new career.
Joining us now to discuss what it takes to embark on a second career as cabin crew is Helen Williams. Good morning, Helen.
Hi, good morning, Helen.
Welcome. Just touching down in our studio.
It is. I've had a few days off and now I'm here.
So you are now cabin crew.
I am.
What inspired you to get into it? What did you do before? How did it all come around?
Oh, so when I graduated, I took an office job with my grad scheme, and that job lasted 6 months, and I started working for a European carrier. I did just over 5 years at that European carrier and had an absolutely fabulous time. I then went on to a wet lease operation with an Irish carrier and another mainline UK carrier. I then decided to have time out. I had a business, I had a family, I had children, and last autumn I decided, why not? Let's go back and do it all again. So returning to that European carrier that I'd worked at when I was in my early 20s.
And what is that like for you now, returning that bit older, having that life experience, having your children? Do you think that's been a benefit to you?
It's absolutely been a benefit. I mean, the amount of parents that thank me for helping me with their small children when they're crying on a flight. I am that person now.
When you went back for a second time, did you notice more sort of older people amongst your sort of colleagues?
I did. So when I returned onto my initial course in March of this year, just over half the course were over the age of 30.
Wow.
Which was absolutely phenomenal. And I was expecting to return and be with a lot of younger, 18, 19, 24. I was expecting to be that dinosaur. And that first day of training, to find out that I wasn't the dinosaur, you have no idea how exciting that was. And they've gone on, that particular group, to be phenomenal crew members.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Let's have a quick skim through the front pages for you. The Mail leads with Boris Johnson's manly pep talk with Prince Harry to try and make him stay in the UK.
Rachel Reeves has asked the Treasury to look into changing the government's borrowing rules, meaning the Chancellor is set to profit by tweaking debt rules. That's according to The Times.
For The Express this morning, the crumbling social care system as a distraught woman shares her harrowing experience having to travel 300 miles to visit her husband who had dementia.
The Daily Mirror brings Mohammed Al Fayed back into the limelight as it's revealed police received 19 sex abuse claims against the former Harrods owner whilst he was alive.
And the Metro highlights multiple major train stations across the UK hit with a cyber attack on their Wi-Fi networks.
Well, joining us now to go through what's making the news is Deputy Editor of Spite, Fraser Myers, and writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth. Very good morning to you both.
Morning.
Candice, should we start with Boris's manly pep talk?
Yes.
Try and stop Brexit.
Oh, so this is a very interesting story. It's on the front page of the Daily Mail. It's sort of anticipating the release of Boris Johnson's new memoir, Unleashed, which the Daily Mail is going to be serialising. And one of the stories in it, which is going to get a lot of attention, is how Boris was asked to speak to Prince Harry right before he was about to leave the UK with Meghan, in the hopes that he would be able to convince him to stay. This is in January 2020. And Boris said he did it. It was on the edges of some Africa-UK investment summit. And Harry wasn't for turning, apparently. He just couldn't do it.
Why would you ask... I mean, look, no offence to Boris Johnson or anything else, but why would you ask the Prime Minister of the country to get involved in a family matter?
And who asked him?
And, the palace asked him, is what it is being implied here. But also, you know, what Boris delivered Brexit, couldn't stop Mexit. But I think any advice from Boris about women in particular should come with a health warning, I would suggest. Another thing Boris says in his memoir, that Harry and Meghan are great assets to the UK, which I think shows his questionable judgment, to be quite honest.
Well, he says they still are.
Well, yeah, apparently. But I think, you know, they've tarnished themselves quite a lot with their dealings with Netflix and things like that, and Spare in particular, Harry's autobiography, having divulged just about everything there is to know about the royal family. It's a bit unseemly.
Yeah, it just shows that there are those very close connections between the palace and Number 10. I mean, the PM meets with the king, I mean, every week. So, I mean, you know, they would have had these very intimate conversations. And Boris was trusted to do it. But, I mean, there was no way. I think at that point they were just looking at what they could achieve in America, and there was no way they were staying here.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just don't know what he could have possibly said to try and convince him.
And apparently it was a very long conversation, half an hour, the two of them behind closed doors. Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall for that?
Yes, you would.
Boris Johnson's persuasive techniques. Oh, just to say, October the 6th, Camilla Tominey is actually interviewing Boris Johnson about his new memoir.
Can I highlight one other quote from the memoir?
Yes, please do.
This is teasing tomorrow's Daily Mail. He says, after discovering I had COVID, I remembered my Athenian history. Pericles died of the plague, I reminded Michael Gove, and his spectacles seemed to glitter at the thought.
Oh, he's a good writer, I'll give it to him.
Yes. Right, Fraser, let's have a look at the Times, should we? The Chancellor is going to free up a whole load of money by tweaking some rules.
So these are the fiscal rules that are currently constraining what the Chancellor is allowed to spend and invest. I think there's a lot of sense around the Labour government that they're not doing enough to invest in the country. She's coming off as austerity. She doesn't want to be doing austerity 2.0, but everyone is accusing her of being spendthrift. And there potentially is this quite technocratic behind-the-scenes tweak that would allow the government to borrow potentially £50 billion more to spend in capital investments and things like that. Now, this sounds like it might be a little bit reckless, but actually it has the backing of groups like the OECD. It's been talked about for a while. Jeremy Hunt floated the idea. His worry was actually that it would put up interest rates if he started fiddling with these rules. But I think, the UK is in a difficult position.
These are not the rules that Gordon Brown put in place.
Well, it's so essentially, fiscal rules were invented by Gordon Brown. We've changed the rules 9 times since they were introduced. So we often talk about them as if they are sacrosanct. They're not, and they should either adapt to meet with the challenges that we're facing, or maybe scrap them entirely. I mean, there is no reason why a Chancellor of the Exchequer should be bound by certain rules. We should be able to trust them. Rachel Reeves is clearly not profligate. She's a trustworthy woman. She should be able to make decisions that are right at the time.
Candice, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, it depends how you approach these things. Should things be more pragmatic? And like you say, people should be able to respond to the circumstances in which they find themselves. These rules can become outdated, and what can happen, it can constrain you when you really need to be able to do things to sort out the problems that you are facing as a Chancellor in that particular time.
An extra £50 billion, does that mean that 1.2 billion or whatever it is can be saved for pensioners?
Well, the problem with these rules, if she were to tweak them, she wouldn't be able to spend them on the winter fuel allowance because they would have to be spent on capital projects over the long run. And obviously there's a sense that, governments like day-to-day spending because that puts money immediately in people's pockets and people feel good about that, whereas longer-term investment, you think, I put money into that, actually maybe the next government benefits from it rather than me. But, the UK has the lowest investment levels in the G7 and we have had for some time. We need to be increasing our investment. If this is one way to do it, then I'm not against it.
Okay. But we've got just over a minute left, so Fraser, let's stay with you and talk about I'm a Celebrity and their eating trials. Arguably the most famous part of the programme, could be at risk.
It could be at risk because people might be too full if they're taking the weight loss jab, Ozempic. So the celebs in the jungle will be allowed to take Ozempic if they already have a prescription, so they can't just suddenly turn up and start asking for it.
You don't need Ozempic in the jungle, do you? You lose weight anyway.
That's true. Only a diet of creepy crawlies, it'll all fall off you. But
what do you make of all this Ozempic stuff, Candice?
It just seems to be ubiquitous now. It's everywhere. There's some interesting stuff coming out about it, but it doesn't just act on the gut, that it acts on the brain. It can be very good for helping with addiction. Yeah. People who've taken it said it help cure their drinking. So, I think there's a lot we still don't know about it. I think one of the things people don't like about it is it seems to be a sort of you're short-circuiting doing the hard work of, say, like exercising, showing discipline, and people feel you're cheating in that way. But it does seem to be a very interesting new drug that has a lot of benefits.
It's just the thing that worries me about it has all these celebrities. The celebrities on the jungle, therefore they're going to want their Ozempic. It's become a designer drug almost.
Well, that can be the problem. I wonder why they prescribed it, though. These particular celebrities, have they got chronic health issues?
Well.
I think you've got to have a certain BMI, haven't you, in order to get it?
To get it from the NHS, but or you just need a doctor, a favourable doctor who will just sign it off for you.
Yes. Right, we're out of time. Good to see you both.
Let's have a look at the weather now with Alex Deacon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry. The overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, one or two developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also one or two scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services aren't running this morning between Doncaster and Hull, Scunthorpe or Cleethorpes because of a cable theft. Buses replaced trains between Shrewsbury and Wolverhampton because of a cable theft, and also because of flooding. There's also disruption to train services between Birmingham, Snow Hill and Marylebone Station in London because of flooding at Bicester North. Some trains are cancelled, some diverting via Oxford. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed each way again today because of flooding between the A6 and M1 near Bedford. The M1 in Hertfordshire is closed northbound where overnight roadworks have overrun between junctions 5 and 6 near Watford, causing delays on the A41 as you divert. And the M5 in Gloucestershire is closed each way because of flooding. Southbound's closed from junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowlfield turn, to 15 for the M4 with queues from Micklewood services. Northbound's closed from junction 16 to 14.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's an incredible £36,000 to be won in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having an extra £3,000 each month to play with. And because it's totally tax-free, you get to keep every penny and spend it however you like. We could be paying for your entire year until...
Kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Keir Starmer has met former President Donald Trump in New York overnight.
It's the first time the PM's met with a Republican presidential candidate. And speaking to GB News before their meeting, Trump was full of praise.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
Well, meanwhile, in New York, as tensions rise in the Middle East, Sir Keir Starmer has called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in his first address to the United Nations.
Escalation serves no one.
It offers nothing but more suffering for innocent people on all sides, and the prospect of a wider war that no one can control.
Forget Brexit. Could Boris Johnson have stopped Megxit? Well, the former PM reveals his manly pep talk with Prince Harry to try and convince the royal couple to stay in the UK.
In Norfolk, a couple is fined after reporting a migrant had snuck into their vehicle on their way back from France. We told you about it in the papers yesterday. We're going to debate whether the fine is fair or bureaucracy gone mad.
Twisted justice. Police reveal 19 women reported rape or sexual assault against the former Harrods boss Mohammed El Fayed. So why was he never arrested?
Good morning. Former Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has piled the pressure on current manager Erik ten Hag by saying he wants to manage the club again. And Tottenham overcome traffic problems and chaos and a delayed kick-off and a red card to prevail in the Europa League. More later.
There's still some heavy rain around at the moment, but it is clearing away, and for most it's going to be a much drier, much brighter, but also colder day. Join me later for all today's weather details and a look at Saturday.
Just gone 7 o'clock. Good morning, I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
There's a lot of Mama Cass love this morning.
There certainly is.
I don't know why it's piqued my interest all of a sudden. Mama Cass.
Got a great voice.
All of a sudden, we've been having a little education, haven't we?
It has been education. I actually recognise the songs. I just didn't know who Mama Cass was by her name. There are loads.
Make your own kind of... I wondered why you knew Make Your Own Kind of Music, which is my favourite. But then when I was looking at it, it was in the Barbie soundtrack.
I think I was familiar with it before
Barbie. All right, OK.
Barbie film.
But Stuart says Make Your Own Kind of Music from '69 was the very first single I ever bought at the age of 9, and I still love it today.
Elaine says, Mama Cass, fantastic voice, Stephen.
Nanny says, Mamas and Papas, the most beautiful, iconic voices, and Mama Cass was amazing.
Lillian says, it's getting better every day. Best blasting out on full volume on the radio, and it's so great for lifting the mood. I love her and her fabulous voice. Yeah, it does lift the mood, that's true.
She's been dead 50 years.
Yeah.
5-0?
5-0.
So it should have been 8-2.
There is a link between her and the Beach Boys. I'm going to find it out.
Okay. She might have married... She was married a couple of times, wasn't
No, not... Yeah, but that was... No, she was a generation above. I think there was a familial link, something to do with Brian Wilson, maybe?
Well, you find out.
I will.
Do your research.
Certainly will.
And Bet says, Mamas and Papas, part of the 60s music revolution, just fantastic. Oh, and on fashion, when we're talking about the most iconic styles of all time, Levi 501 jeans have topped the list for designs of the ages. Beverly's been in touch saying, maybe it's Bev Turner. No, it won't be Bev Turner. I bought my first pair of Levi's in 1968 for £3.50.
Oh, it could be.
When was Bev Turner born?
1942.
She wasn't born to the 70s, was she?
73 she was born.
Same age as you, isn't she?
She's a year older.
There you go. Anyway, this Beverly bought her first pair of Levi's in 1968 for £3.50, which was a fortune then, worn with Dr. Scholl's sandals.
Dr. Scholl.
Yeah.
Dr. Scholl, very comfy.
SCH.
Yeah. Are these on the list?
No, Dr. Scholl's are definitely not on the list, no. If you knew you were hitting middle age, if you looked at a pair of Dr. Scholl's and went, ooh, they look comfy.
Right, OK. Air Max 90 Nike trainers are on the list at number 6.
I remember those.
I'll give you that. Converse All-Star trainers on the list at number 5. And Doc Martens, Cherry Red Doc Martens, number 10.
You're a fashionista, aren't you?
Yeah, now and again. Yeah. You know, sometimes they've got patterns that don't belong on my shirt here and there. But,
yeah. How are you doing with your stain removal?
Sorry?
How are you doing with your stain removal?
I've got a plan. It'll be gone by the next break.
All right.
I promise.
All right.
Cool. Talk to Stephen if you've got any stains that need removing.
I will.
Right. You throw me off there. I thought we were getting some...
He's really good at doing laundry.
I am. Would you
he loves doing laundry.
I do not love doing... I hate doing laundry, but...
You're very good at it.
I'm very good at getting my whites white.
He is. And I get stains out of anything, and you ask him, honestly...
Because this happened this morning before the show.
It's true. You send in any stain, gbnews.com/you'll say, and Stephen will tell you how to get it out. You've got the answer to everything.
Yes, but unfortunately, I know they'll people
Don't
send
be
in
rude.
horrible messages
Don't
now.
be rude.
It's salt, isn't it, for red wine? Is that
Oh,
correct?
it's all sorts of stuff. No, but
Really?
there's modern. Go for the modern stuff now.
Well,
There's all
Danny.
these various things you can do.
You're the fountain of all knowledge.
I'm very good getting my whites white.
We have...
I should do an advert. Remember those... It's Daz. Does Daz still exist? I could do those doorstep challenges
Danny
for
Baker.
Daz.
It's true, you would be very good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today we actually had Eva, our floor manager, come up to Stephen with her white jacket with the stain on it and said, how do I fix this? And Stephen advised, didn't you?
What was more worrying? She said it was blood, but it says it's not mine.
We weren't going to ask any questions.
So I don't know what she's been getting up to, but
Anyway.
if we might be ringing the police before the end of the show.
Yes, I've probably opened the floodgates for that now.
You probably have.
Anyway.
Right, we better crack on with the Prime Minister, who overnight has met President Trump for the first time in efforts to establish a new international relationship.
Well, it concludes Sir Keir Starmer's three-day trip to New York after attending the United Nations annual meeting of world leaders.
In his address, he warned fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has the potential to spill into a wider war that no one can control.
Well, our political editor, Christopher Hope, has the latest from New York.
Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK this morning after a rush round of diplomacy in New York City during the UN General Assembly. He's been trying to get a 3-week ceasefire deal between Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon and Israel to get UK citizens out there, get Brits out there. There's 2 warships in the region. Cyprus is available. Real worry about the future of British citizens in Lebanon. Also with Ukraine, he's been trying to talk to President Zelensky, get some kind of agreement between the West on this victory plan put forward by President Zelensky. He's due to meet, that's President Zelensky, with Donald Trump on Friday, lunchtime UK time. A crucial meeting because if Trump wins the election on November the 5th, many fear that he may push Ukraine towards a peace deal they don't want with Russia. On Thursday night, Keir Starmer was due to meet with Donald Trump finally. And for GB News, I asked Donald Trump a question here in Trump Tower.
You're meeting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government have been quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? Yeah. But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
And would you rather Nigel Farage...
Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with GB News in the UK.
Okay, good.
Would you rather Nigel Farage had a bigger role?
Well, I think Nigel is great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He had a great election, too. He picked up a lot of seats, more seats than he was allowed to have, actually. They acknowledge that he won, but for some reason you have a very strange system over there. You might win him, but you don't get him. Nigel is a fantastic person.
So a big boost there for Nigel Farage, his old friend Donald Trump, of course, being pleasant. But this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK, battling with more issues about the so-called freebies he's been taking and how he can try and get a lid on that. It's a challenging time for him, but for him, for now, Sir Keir Starmer's time in the US has come to an end. Christopher Hope, Trump Tower, New York City.
I met Donald Trump in Trump Tower once.
How was that?
It was all right. I was only in there having a drink. It was at the bar, and he came in and started chatting to people. He was very nice.
Did he chat
very
to you?
friendly. He did.
What did he say?
Hi, where are you from? Basically, that was it.
Just like that?
It's about 15, 20 years ago, but he was nice enough.
Is he very tall?
He was tall, yeah.
He looks tall.
Yeah. Anyway,
Oh.
it was in my drinking days. It was all a bit of a blur. Anyway, let's talk to a political commentator, Theo Usherwood, who's here. What are we to make, Theo, of what the fact the Prime Minister has been meeting, has met Donald Trump overnight? I mean, he's sort of playing both sides of the coin on this, isn't he?
Yes, he's hedging his bets because, of course, this American election at the beginning of November is just too close to call. He has a good relationship already with Biden, and you would expect, and I think Number 10 would expect that would just trip straight over into a good relationship with Kamala Harris and the Democrats if she wins. But there is a gap in philosophy, in ideology and outlook between Trump, his Republican Party, and the Labour government and Keir Starmer's own administration here in London. And I think what the purpose of this visit, aside from, of course, going to the United Nations and calling for that ceasefire in the Middle East, was to try and actually start or try to establish a relationship with Donald Trump. They met for that 2-hour dinner, and of course there was that press conference, which you heard there, where he answered the question from Chris Hope, that actually Trump was quite warm towards Keir Starmer. And I think that's a good thing, and perhaps a little bit surprising, given, of course, what senior members of Keir Starmer's government have said previously about Donald Trump, namely Angela Eagle, Home Office Minister, saying during the Labour Party conference that she accused the Republican candidate of stoking vitriol online with his rhetoric against migrants. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary in opposition, opposed Donald Trump travelling to this country, describing him as a neo-Nazi sociopath. So I think, all things considered, this can be considered the win for Keir Starmer is that actually there is going to be some sort of relationship, if you go on what Donald Trump's been saying, and the fact that they were able to sit down for dinner.
Will it be the special relationship, though, that we have been familiar with historically? Because it is interesting, isn't it, as Keir Starmer's talking about establishing a relationship. Is that because they're coming at this from opposite ends of the political
You're quite right to pick up on that. Of course, the special relationship goes back to Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s, and ideologically they were very much aligned. And of course, it does become strained, but when you have leaders from different sides of the political divide. But usually there's a way forward. You think about the relationship between Barack Obama and David Cameron. That was close, despite one being a Democrat, the other being a Conservative. And given our,
Blair Bush.
Blair Bush. That's an even better example, Stephen. There is unlike the rest of Europe, we share a language, we share an outlook, much more closely aligned with the United States.
OK, look, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Theo touched on the Middle East situation, of course, and that's causing a huge amount of concern. And it's why Sir Keir Starmer, what he was wanting to talk about at the United Nations, of course, because it's very strange. There is this sort of split now. The UN really calling for, and a lot of countries, including the UK and the EU and America, calling for this immediate ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. But is there any chance of that happening? This is what the Prime Minister had to say yesterday.
So we are ready to step up in a spirit of respect and equal partnership. I don't claim that solving these problems is easy, but there are positive, practical things that we can do together. This starts with addressing the rising tide of conflict and preventing a regional war in the Middle East. I call on Israel and Hezbollah, stop the violence, step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire.
Well, his speech followed Israel launching its biggest offensive against the Lebanese-based militia, Hezbollah.
Well, it began with the detonation, as you know, of thousands of pages. The following day, walkie-talkies. Hundreds of people in Lebanon were killed, thousands injured, thousands more forced to flee.
Well, joining us live to discuss this is former British Army spokesperson Major Mike Shearer. Good to see you this morning. What's your assessment of where we are now?
Well, I mean, it just creeps around the whole issue, does it not? Everyone's calling upon Israel to do something by way of making peace. But let us not forget that it is Israel that is responding to keeping itself alive, for want of a better expression. The real problem here, and this is something that I guess that the whole international community needs to consider, we really need to start thinking about the international community in the West, and indeed our Arab neighbours, our friendly Arab neighbours, thinking about dealing with the problem. If you were walking down a street and a man with a glove puppet attacks you, do you attack the puppet or do you attack and defend yourself by fixing the man? I And in this analogy, I think we need seriously to start thinking about dealing with Iran. I think all the questions now that are pointed at Israel needs to be rethought. I really don't know where they're going to go with this, by the way. I really don't know, except that they need to get their hostages back. They need to defend their own sovereignty. And the people that we're speaking about, Hamas, Hezbollah, are bit players in this.
I mean, you raise a really valid point, Mike. The problem is, though, how do you go? I mean, if you were to deal with Iran, you've got the problem of a vacuum of power, which has been a perennial issue within the Middle East and how it gets filled. But also, if you deal with Iran, you've also got to deal with Syria, haven't you? And potentially, of course, therefore, you've got to deal with Russia.
Well, I don't know that that's entirely true. The Persian people are very sophisticated people. They you know, if we look back to the 60s and the 70s before the Shah was deposed, they were a people that we could completely understand. I don't know that anything else, honestly, gets in the way of dealing. It's very rare you would ever hear me calling for a regime change. But I'm afraid in this occasion, if we were to, if the West and its allies, not just on its own, very important that our Arab allies are with us, but if we were to remove the current regime in the Ayatollah Khomeini and his Republican Guard Corps, I think we're almost finished with the problems. It would immediately make the Middle East a safer place, and indeed would remove the worry that we all have of another despot having nuclear weapons.
Shearer, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Right, it is coming up to 18 minutes past 7. Let's have a look at the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
Scotland Yard has issued a call for any potential victims of Mohammed Al Fayed to come forward. Police have revealed they will explore if anyone else could be pursued for criminal offences following abuse allegations against the former Harrods boss. It comes as it's been revealed that 19 women reported rape or sexual assault while the former Harrods boss was alive.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met President Biden in New York after the US pledged $8 billion in further military aid. President Zelensky arrived in the States to present his victory plan to American leaders, pledging bold action to end the war. He also met Vice President Harris and will have a meeting with Donald Trump today.
A man has been arrested in connection with a cyber attack targeting railway stations across the UK. People logging onto Wi-Fi at 19 stations across the country were greeted with a page about terrorist attacks. The man in question is understood to be an employee of a technology company that provides internet access to some Network Rail stations.
I do find it a bit odd, Scotland Yard saying, you know, come forward if if you've got claims to be made against Mohammed Al Fayed. 19 people complained to the police while he was still alive, and nothing happened.
He was never arrested.
So, I mean, yeah, all well and good. I mean, it's good it's being properly investigated, but talk about being too late. But anyway, we shall see whether there are other people behind the scenes who've got questions to answer. Perhaps we shall have to wait and see. But it's for those people involved, it's, you know, what can they get now?
No, exactly. Awful, isn't it? Awful situation. Let's have a look at the weather now, shall we? With Alex Deacon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry. The overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, one or two developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also one or two scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, some good news this morning. There's still plenty of time to grab a chance to win an incredible £36,000 in the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, that's like having £3,000 in your bank account every month for a whole year, tax-free, which is a nice bit.
Means, actually.
It is exactly what it means, yeah, except you don't get it every month. You get it in one lovely lump sum, so you can count it all on your kitchen table. Anyway, here's how you can have a chance of winning all that lovely lolly.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
£30,000 cash? Oh my God!
And can that be right? We'll debate that next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Now, an antiques dealer and her husband have been fined £3,000 after a migrant snuck into their vehicle at the French border.
Well, Ed Masters, who had borrowed a van to help his wife Janie Cave, reported the incident to Suffolk Police. However, he was held responsible for not securing the vehicle properly.
Well, last night, Janie spoke to Patrick Christie's, and this is what she had to say.
We got to Barton Mills, and the migrant got tapped like this 3 times on the van. We thought, oh, please say it's not a migrant, it is a migrant. The migrant got caught by the police and taken to a house, which I'm not allowed to say the name of. And then I got interrogated for 2 hours. The guy checked the van, nobody else in there.
Have you now got a criminal conviction as well for this?
Ed has got, not a criminal conviction, but he's got a fine of £3,000.
Well, you can catch more interviews like that, along with big debates and even bigger guests on Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. And that conversation last night has inspired our debate today.
Yes, we're joined by Research Director for the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, alongside former Chief Immigration Officer at Border Force, Kevin Saunders. Good to see you both this morning. Rob, what do you reckon? I mean, clearly, the van can't have been locked, can't have been properly secured, can it, for this young man to get in?
Well, I think this is a case study in everything that's wrong with our borders. I think, you know, we've got the French authorities doing these checks on their side of the channel and clearly not doing it competently enough, given that this chap was going undetected. We've then got the border force absolutely swarming over this couple, using their resources, I'd argue, not very effectively. I mean, I think the chap has been now pulled over 4 times subsequently at airports and ports. And then we've got, ultimately, the British taxpayer getting walloped as well because, you know, these guys have now suffered a £3,000 fine. So I think, in a nutshell, this is everything that is going wrong with the migration crisis. And if this is the government's plan of smashing the gangs, then I think we're in a lot of trouble.
Kevin, I mean, it doesn't seem fair, does it? This couple have done the right thing. They've reported that the migrant was in their vehicle, that he'd managed to get away. They will be thinking now, well, if that ever happens again, they simply won't report it. They just let him go off into the wilderness.
These people are extremely lucky that they've only got a £3,000 fine. If this has happened in France, then the driver of the van could well be facing 3 months in a French prison. The rule is that the driver of the vehicle is responsible for the security of the vehicle. And if the vehicle is not secure and people get in and there's no argument about whether you tell the police, whether you don't tell the police, but if you bring somebody in an unsecured vehicle, then you are liable for a civil penalty. Now, as I say, if this had happened in France, the vehicle would have been destroyed and the individual may well have gone to prison for 3 months.
Rob, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, that in itself is ultimately indicative of how things have gone so wrong. We're talking about the rules here, but yet we have had, in the last 4 years, we've had 150,000 people break into the country. So we're not quite enforcing the rules, perhaps, as stridently and as across the board as we should be. I think the question needs to be as well, if it's a £3,000 fine, how much are we now going to fine the RNLI and the useful idiots at Care for Calais that are absolutely facilitating the flows over the channel and the illegal migrants that are breaking into our country? I mean, we can get stuck in the technicalities, authorities, but I think common sense would mandate that these people aren't those that are trying to engage in any form of people smuggling, and therefore the idea that they've had the absolute book thrown at them, whereas those that are breaking into the country have been able to live a life of luxury in 4-star hotels is really, really telling.
Kevin, isn't it part of this down to Border Force and not doing the correct checks on these vehicles?
No, because we haven't had 150,000 people break into the country through Calais or the Channel Tunnel in the last year. These people have come across on boats which Border Force can't control. At the Channel Tunnel and at Calais and Dunkirk, we can control it, and we do control it. It's not 100%, but we get most of them. This one slipped through. Perhaps it shouldn't have done, but as I say, if it hadn't slipped through, then the consequences for this couple would have been far, far worse.
Yeah, but I tell you what, Kevin, Rob makes a good point, doesn't he, when he just talks about common sense. You know, these people, this sort of ordinary couple, if you like, clearly didn't do this intentionally. Clearly, they thought they were doing the right thing by notifying the authorities when they discovered this man. Where is the common sense in all of this?
This couple did not follow the rules correctly. They did not have their vehicles secured. Now, I've been in Calais. I've looked at this sort of case. We actually discovered a very senior retired police officer in more or less exactly the same position as this couple, although he was actually discovered in France. He was arrested. The French kept him in custody for 3 days. They destroyed the vehicle he was travelling in and banned him from France for 5 years. So the French take it very, very seriously, and so they should, and so should we. And I'm sorry, if this couple don't secure their vehicle properly, then this is the consequence.
We need to take it more seriously?
Well, I think ultimately the buck stops with Border Force. I think, we've got between 800,000 and 1.2 million illegal migrants currently in our country. Not everyone has come over the boats, not everyone has come in the back of vans. People have overstayed visas and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is that we have those that are meant to be protecting our borders, keeping our borders secure and sovereign, have been far too lax for far too long. And the crisis that we're now seeing in the Channel is really only the tip of the iceberg. As I say, 1.2 million ultimately that could be living in the country illegally. It's absolutely staggering figure.
OK, Rob Bates, Kevin Saunders, good to see you both this morning. Let's just tell you what the Home Office has said about all of this. They said, we're fully committed to stopping people from illegally entering the country and cracking down on people smugglers. The clandestine entrant civil penalty scheme aims to ensure drivers are taking every reasonable step to deter irregular migration and disrupt people smugglers.
It is understood the fines are only issued when Border Force officers consider that they have significant evidence. Well, do let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Yeah.
David says the treatment of the couple reporting this migrant in their car is utterly absurd. Is this kind of small nibbling away of decent, normal behaviour that ends up with people distrusting the whole system?
Actually, that's a really good point. I think it's a really well put point, David, because it is that nibbling away thing where you just think, why are we even bothering?
Well, other couples just won't report it to the authorities.
No.
If it were to happen to them,
yeah,
they wouldn't risk it.
No, right. Still to come, Aidan's going to be here with all the very latest sports news. That's in a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Trains aren't running between Doncaster and Hull, Scunthorpe or Cleethorpes because of a cable theft, and buses replace trains between Shrewsbury and Wolverhampton because of a cable theft and because of flooding. There's disruption to train services between Birmingham, Snow Hill and Marylebone Station in London because of flooding, with some trains cancelled, some others diverting via Oxford. A number of roads are closed because of flooding in Bedfordshire. The A42. A number of roads are closed because of flooding in Bedfordshire. The A421 remains closed each way between the A6 and M1 near Bedford. And the A6 is closed northbound out of Bedford. The M5 in Gloucestershire is closed each way because of flooding. Southbound from junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowlfield turn to 15 for the M4 with queues for the Micklewood services. And northbound's closed from junction 16 at Aztec West. 14 on the M25 in Essex. 2 lanes are closed anti-clockwise just before junction 28 for the A12 after an accident causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Aidan McGee is here to go through all the sport.
Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Can I start with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, please?
You can.
You may.
Because he's been...
It's a blast from the past.
It is a little bit. Well, look, he left... It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? But he left the job at Man United in November 2021. And he hasn't done a great deal since. And he parted on good terms when he left United. He was one of those... normally when someone's bounded out the back door, they just go back. You don't see them again until well, whenever, really, sometimes never. But he did an interview just afterwards, after he was sat saying, look, I'm sorry it ended this way, I tried my best. And that's why he still carries this currency as a manager as well as a player. We all know what he did as a player. But he's been giving a talk in the last couple of days at the Oslo Business School or Business Forum. And he said, he was asked.
Very popular.
Yeah, I know. It's a bastion of football groupthink. So, anyway, he was asked, would he manage Manchester United again? So he's been asked the question, and he said, I'd say yes. If the United family came in for me again, I would say yes every single day of the week. Now, it's quite emphatic what he says there. He probably could have been a bit less kind of vehement in his response. But nonetheless, given his profile, given his level of fame, given the fact that he's Man United, everything that a manager says or former manager says travels around the world, it's caused a bit of a problem for the current incumbent, Erik ten Hag, who I just don't think if you're him, you want to be hearing that, do you? When the pressure's on.
Ten Hag doesn't want to be there, does he, anymore?
I'm not sure. Well, look, it can't be nice when you're the manager of the club and you know that last summer the new owners tried to get somebody else in, but the reason you kept the job is because they couldn't find anybody else. I imagine that. Well, it kind of there's an argument that actually strengthened his position because they couldn't replace him. It meant that he suddenly was saying, well, OK, well, you're what I'm what you've got now. You have to make do for now. So this is what I want. I want this player and that player. They've signed players. They haven't been very inspiring at the start of this season. They've lost 2 games out of 5, winning just 2. And they were really, really lacklustre the other night, Stephen, against FC Twente. I mean, Ten Hag said afterwards that the players lacked hunger. Now, what does that say when you're the manager of the team? You're not new there. You've been there for 2.5 years. And suddenly you're saying these players don't look as if they want to win this match. And Ruud Gullit, his fellow countryman, afterwards, who was doing some analysis, said it looks like the players are just ignoring his instructions. So I think he's on borrowed time anyway. I don't think it's enough to say, look, I've won 2 domestic cups. Man United's about winning the Premier League. That's what Wes Brown said this week. That's what Nicky Butt said this week. It's about how you do in the Premier League and the Champions League. It's the biggest club in the world, and they need to pull the socks up, quite frankly.
Very briefly, can you tell us about Spurs? Because there was a delay, wasn't there?
Massive delay, yeah. Karabag of Azerbaijan. A Baku-based club. Karabag, now they're going to get fined. I don't know if it's going to be 5p or not, but...
Oh, for a carrier bag. Oh, right, OK. It's 30p now. It's gone up to 30p.
50p in Waitrose the other day. But you get quite a nice one, yeah. Quite a nice thick one.
Anyway, they were expensive.
They turned up 15 minutes before kick-off, and the game kicked off at 8:35. Spurs got a man sent off. They won 3-0, but I'll go into more detail next hour.
Fabulous.
On the operational difficulties.
Yes, thank you. We'd like to know more about the operation.
You might need Simon Calder to...
Oh, I think we would do for that one. I dropped all my shopping in the supermarket talking about carrier bags.
Did you?
The other day. No. I'd got one. It was a paper one, though, that this particular store provides, and I dropped it. I felt like a right...
What, like the American thing?
No, it had handles.
It's been to Whole Foods, isn't it?
And I had 12 pints of milk and 12 eggs all went all over the floor.
What do you need all that milk for?
How dare you?
Get out. Get out. They were very good. They cleaned it all up and then replaced it all, even though it was entirely my fault.
Oh, well. Did you help to clear it up?
I tried. I was very, very embarrassed. Anyway, right, we've got the papers heading away in just a moment. We'll see you then.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Professor Frank Furedi has long been recognised for his incisive critiques on contemporary cultural and political issues. In his latest book, titled Why the West Must Fight for Its History, he argues that we are currently facing a profound crisis of identity, exacerbated by the growing trend of historical revisionism. And he joins me now. Welcome to GB News. So would you like to set out, as briefly as possible, the argument in your book?
My argument is basically that increasingly cultural conflicts are about the past, rather than simply about what's going on now. And I became aware of the fact that just about every dimension of our past, our legacy, our cultural achievements, is now being rendered toxic by a systematic attempt to contaminate who we are, where we come from. And to me, that's a very dangerous development. And what's also very dangerous is that all of our cultural institutions, the schools, universities, museums, are going along with this. And there's very little resistance to this whole process. And if that continues, then, in a sense, people growing up in today's world will feel a sense of shame about their nation, about where they come from. Britain did many things over the centuries which we shouldn't be proud of. But when you roll the film backwards and you look at the history of this nation, I think that there is a lot to be proud about. And it's not even a question of balancing good and bad. It's simply having an honest understanding that these achievements, from the Magna Carta onwards, are historically important. You cannot have an idea of tolerance without the contribution of someone like John Locke. You know, you cannot have a sense of technological progress without the Industrial Revolution.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're going through the papers now with Deputy Editor of Spite, Fraser Myers, and writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth. Very good morning to you both. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Fraser, should we have a look at Rachel Reeves, who is rethinking the non-dom tax? Not going to raise as much money as they thought, it would seem.
It might not raise any money at all, is one of the big fears. So
when it was paying for everything.
Yeah, exactly. This was going to pay for just about every election pledge that the Labour Party made. Earlier, when the first estimates were brought out, Rachel Reeves thought it was going to raise over £3 billion. Just in the run-up to the election, then that went down to about £1 billion, and now the Treasury are fearing it might raise nothing at all. Now, as people might understand, raising taxes, particularly on the wealthy, is a very tricky balancing act because they can simply leave the country if they feel they're being taxed too much. Now, people might see the non-dom tax as unfair, are the super rich getting concessions that ordinary people might not get, but let's not forget this is money that people have actually earned overseas rather than in the UK. The Tories already made a few tweaks to it as well, and Rachel Reeves wanted to go further, but yeah, it looks like they're going to scrap it. What's the point of raising, what's the point of imposing a tax that doesn't raise any money? The point is to bring money in for the exchequer, not just to make a statement about wealth inequality.
Yeah, but the problem with this is it's optics, isn't it? Because it's still going to look like, although people might not like changing non-dom status, it now says, well, we'll leave them alone and we'll rob the pensioners.
Oh, it just looks terrible. The problem is, once again, it's an argument for pragmatism. You might not like the idea of non-doms, but the fact is you have to go with the way people behave, not how you'd like them to behave. And when people are highly mobile and you've got competitive tax regimes all over the world, they can leave and they can do what they want to do. But I think it's so true. It does put the Labour government in a very difficult position because it's, the pensioners, they've got nowhere to go. But with non-doms, because of how highly mobile they are, you can't go after them. And the optics are terrible.
And one of the things that is worth stressing, and one of the reasons Rachel Reeves is so constrained, is the fact that in the UK already, the overwhelming majority of tax is paid for by people who are wealthy and who have money. So actually compared with Europe, if you were in France or in Germany, if you were middle class, you would be paying a lot more tax than in the UK. We don't think that. It's not part of the sort of narrative. It's certainly not a narrative that the Conservatives wanted to put out. No. They wanted to appear as if they're doing well for wealth creators and things like that, but even if they weren't. Labour obviously doesn't want to admit that either, that the Conservatives were taxing the rich a lot more than it seemed. But, yeah, that essentially means that every tax rise or every spending cut that Rachel Reeves makes is going to be unpopular because it's not going to fall on, people with the broader shoulders.
I just find it extraordinary that the Labour has handed themselves a loaded gun.
Yes.
2 months into an election.
Well, I think, from what I'm hearing, even on the grassroots, people are just so confused about this Labour government. They're just like, this goes against what we think Labour are. And I think this is what's going to happen in the time of crisis like ours. I don't think that you can be ideological. You're going to have to just deal with things case by case by case. But Labour have just made such a song and dance about themselves, and they're always so moralistic. So, like with anyone who's very moralistic, you're going to get caught out in hypocrisy sooner or later.
And we heard that even at the Labour conference, didn't we? We had a head of the union standing up and saying, this is not what we voted for, this is not what we stand for.
Yeah.
Candice, can we have a look at the Telegraph? Because I think this is fascinating. The awful story of Nicola Bulley, who went missing in a river.
Yes.
And it took ages to find her body. But the pressure and the social media pressure and everything else that went around it, there's this story now about just what that did to the family.
Yes, I find this so interesting as well. So this Daily Telegraph story is about a new documentary that's coming out on the BBC about what the family went through and exactly how you explained it. It's going to feature her husband, Paul Ansell, who was subject to something that I call toxic attention on social media. So what people do is they become interested in a story, they become interested in a person, and they become very negatively obsessed with it and conspiratorial, and they can subject this person to all types of wild speculation. And he was particularly subject to it because people started accusing him of having something to do with her disappearance. They were even privately messaging him on social media. This is a man going through profound trauma, and you have people accusing him of doing the absolute worst thing. And apparently one of the things he's going to say in the documentary was he couldn't even respond to people sending him messages because as soon as he did that, he knew it was screenshotted and shared on social media. And I've seen it with influencers. There'll be a certain subsection of their audience which will just turn against them and they'll just start spinning wild tales about them, and there's very little you can do about it. You can say that people like that invite attention. You know, someone like Paul Ansell didn't at all.
No.
It's something that we really have to contend with in our era, especially when you've got such a huge interest in true crime now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a... And you had lots of amateur detectives going down there and thinking that they could solve the crime.
And we're seeing this more and more, aren't we, Fraser? I mean, we saw it with Nicola Bulley, one of the first instances of it, and Jay Slater, more recently.
Oh,
These
yes.
armchair detectives coming out of the woodwork. And it really can damage the family.
It can, especially when people start going around accusing the family of all kinds of things. And I remember also, I think someone was done for harassment against, you know, some of the victims, or family members of victims of the Manchester Arena bombing. You know, assuming that they were somehow involved in a conspiracy, or quite famously the Sandy Hook shooting, where Alex Jones, you know, would put out the idea that the children were fake and they were crisis actors. That meant that the family members were then targeted for abuse. I think, you know, it's a sign of the kind of darkness of conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking, and it has to be called out.
Yeah. Here's some good news, which I can hardly believe my eyes, Fraser. It's in the Telegraph. Apparently, petrol's going to get cheaper.
Yes, amazingly, thanks to Saudi Arabia, not a phrase I often want to say.
Well, no, good on them. That's what I say.
Yes, so thank you to Riyadh. They've decided they're going to up their oil production, even though it's going to cost them, because essentially they've realised they don't have as much power as they're used to. OPEC, the Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries, they have less of a grip on the market than they once did, mostly because America is now such a big producer of fossil fuels, and their attempts to essentially force the price up have failed. They've acknowledged that, so they're going to put production up, and that means the price of petrol down over here will go up or go down at the pump. But, you know, Mrs. Reeves might be waiting. She might use this as an excuse to put up some taxes on petrol in the budget. So, you know, it's not often that you'd say, hooray, Saudi Arabia, boo to the the UK government, but there you go. Yeah. What a strange world we live in.
Oh, isn't just.
It really is. Candice, should we talk about something nice and happy?
OK.
It's Princess Catherine.
Yeah.
A secret trip to the ballet yesterday at the end of her chemotherapy treatment.
Yeah, so this is a nice story in The Sun. It's about how Catherine has she went to go see a ballet. She went to go see Giselle at Sadler's Wells. She's a big lover of the arts. And it's so lovely to see her kind of doing normal things again, because I think people get so worried about her. They know she's ill. She's out of the public eye. She absolutely should be. She needs privacy when she's ill. But I think people now see that, OK, she's in some sort of recovery. Her chemotherapy is over. But it's also good to see her doing things on her own terms. And she's sort of returning to work slowly, and she's doing very little events, and she's not getting back into it too quickly, because I think that is, like we were talking about with the toxic attention on social media, she got a lot of toxic attention.
Did.
Yeah.
Shockingly so. And what you don't want is for her her behaviour to be shaped by that. So, you know, you want her to be able to slowly return to work, recover, because she's had a very serious illness. She is obviously a public figure and she needs to manage that image, but in a healthy way.
I don't know if I'd call going to the ballet a everyday activity.
Well, it's a treat.
A treat, though. Yeah. A very nice treat if you like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she has said before in a walkabout, obviously before she got ill, she was saying that Princess Charlotte really loves ballet.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Loves dancing. Apparently she's really into ballet and tap.
Oh.
So maybe she was there with Princess Charlotte.
That's a nice thing to do.
But that's
with
quite
your
nice,
child.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. It's just nice to see her out and about, I think.
Should we go to the ballot?
I don't know if you'd love the ballot. I'd like to go see Swan Lake at Christmas if you'd like to take me.
Yes, I'd like to go with you. I'm not buying your ticket.
I can highly recommend
I'm always trying to get him to pay for my stuff, but it hasn't worked so far.
There you go. Out of time. Here's the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry, the overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon. 1 or 2 developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also 1 or 2 scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Trains have been stopped northbound from Carlisle to both Glasgow Central and Edinburgh Waverley after a train broke down at Lockerbie. There's no service between Doncaster and Hull, Scunthorpe or Cleethorpes because of a cable theft, and buses replaced trains between Shrewsbury and Wolverhampton because of a cable theft and because of flooding. Now, a number of roads are closed because of flooding, including the M5 in Gloucestershire. That's closed each way southbound from junction 14. The Thornbury and Fellfield turn to the M4 with queues for the Micklewood services. Northbound's closed from junction 16 at Aztec West to junction 14. On the M25 from Berkshire into Buckinghamshire, 2 lanes are closed clockwise between junctions 15 and 16 from the M4 to the M40 after an accident with queues in both directions. On the M25 in Essex, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed anti-clockwise just before junction 28 for the A12 after an accident with queues from junction 29 for the A127. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
£30,000 cash.
Members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning to you. Keir Starmer has met President Trump in New York overnight.
It's the first time the Prime Minister's met with the Republican presidential candidate. And speaking to GB News before their meeting, Trump was full of praise.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
Meanwhile, in New York, as tensions rise in the Middle East, Sir Keir Starmer has called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in his first address to the UN.
Escalation serves no one. It offers nothing but more suffering for innocent people on all sides, and the prospect of a wider war that no one can control.
Forget Brexit. Could Boris Johnson have stopped Megxit? Well, the former PM reveals his manly pep talk with Prince Harry to convince the royal couple to stay in the UK.
Police revealed 19 women reported rape or sexual assault against the Harrods boss Mohammed Al Fayed. So why was he never arrested in his lifetime?
And we'll be speaking to the inspiring Brit who summited the 3 tallest mountains in the UK, not once, but 3 times each for charity.
Tottenham overcome traffic problems and a red card to prevail in the Europa League, and Manchester City may have been handed an unexpected boost in their fights against the 115 charges for breaking the Premier League's financial rules. More on that later.
There's still some heavy rain around at the moment, but it is clearing away, and for most it's going to be a much drier, much brighter, but also colder day. Join me later for all today's weather details and a look at Saturday.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Right, we're having beans this morning.
Beans for breakfast. There's no better breakfast, is there?
I like beans on toast for breakfast.
So do I. I would actually call myself a baked beans connoisseur.
Would you? Well, we can put you to the test. Tell us what the story is.
The story is, you might think beans, you might think Heinz. Heinz means beans.
Beans means Heinz.
Beans means Heinz. Heinz means beans. Who knows? This is...
Don't touch them, because they've got the numbers on the bottom.
Oh, right. OK, I understand
Give
the
away
game
a
now.
trade secret.
So, of all of the supermarket baked beans, it is actually the Aldi supermarket version, this version over here, which came out on top. The Bramwell's baked beans, 76% on the taste test.
And they're much cheaper as well.
Much cheaper. Households can save, if you're buying 2 cans a week, £100 a year buying the Aldi version of these baked beans. So we thought we're going to do a blind taste test this morning.
Yes.
To see.
So we've got the Aldi beans, we've got M&S beans, and we've got beans Heinz.
Beans Heinz.
So, which is number 1?
This is number 1.
Right, go on, you first then.
I think I'll be able to tell which is which.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I do like my beans.
Oh, they're cold. Ugh. OK, that's quite good.
Right, that's
quite good. I'd say...
Yeah.
Number 2.
That might be the Aldi one.
The key is in the thickness of the sauce, and...
Well, it's a flavour.
Well, no, I don't know. It's not at all. It's all about consistency as well, if you know you're cooking.
That one's not as good as 1, I'd say. What do you think? Stodgier.
No, I prefer that one.
Do you? Why?
Lukewarm, yeah, they're not very hot, but...
They're not very hot, but...
You don't have to have beans hot.
And these are really runny, loads of sauce on this.
My dad used to eat them cold as a kid.
Don't like that at all.
Drops a bean in there.
They're the worst. They're watery, they're runny.
Yeah, they're really unpleasant.
OK.
I'm going to go... I think the best ones are number 2.
Yeah, but you know what? I would agree with you.
Cannot tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference.
I'm going to go 1. I'm going the first ones, second ones and third, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So
I think number 2 is the best one.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
2 came first best to me.
So the Heinz is number 3.
Interesting.
Which was the worst one?
Which is the worst one, which is the ones... Actually, I'll buy it home.
Do you know what? That's just proven it. M&S was number 1. And Aldi was number 2, which was our favourite as well.
I said M&S.
Yeah, and we both said Aldi.
We did say Aldi. I have to be honest, I was not expecting that.
I told you. This is the hill I will die on. These are the beans that I get at home and I love them.
At university, you get the tin that's half that size, and it was 21p for the store ones and 23p for Heinz baked beans. And as I say, the key was in the thickness of the sauce and how hard the beans were. They
actually are really nice. They're really. I am really surprised, and we buy more than 2 cans a week, so it saved me a couple of £100.
We get through 2 cans.
So you like the Aldi ones?
I like the Aldi ones. Okay. I'm shocked.
They're a lot cheaper. Yeah. So we're looking at Branston beans are £1. Heinz beans are £1.40, and these can be as short as 42p.
Wow.
With the Aldi beans, amazing. Cheap.
Well, there you go.
Sausages or curried beans, maybe?
No.
Just as they come.
Just as they come. Right, well, there you go. That's a shocker for you. We're going to talk about what's going on with Sir Keir Starmer. He's been meeting President Trump and he's been talking to the United Nations. We're going to talk about all of that in a moment. But first, we're going to kick off with the former boss of Harrods.
Yes, Mohammed Al-Fayed. The Metropolitan Police are appealing for any potential victim survivors of alleged sexual abuse by Mohammed Al-Fayed to come forward.
They've said they must ensure every victim has the confidence to speak out about the former Harrods boss and allow them to explore whether anybody else should be pursued for related offences.
Well, with the latest on this is GB News correspondent Cameron Walker. Good to see you this morning, Cameron. What's the latest? Because there's been so many shocking allegations that we've heard in the past few days.
There certainly has, Ellie, and the number keeps ramping up. So far, there's been at least 5 alleged rapes by Mohammed Al-Fayed, and at least 100 women have come forward with allegations of indecent assault or sexual assault, or have at least talked to lawyers. As you say, the police are calling for anybody who has any other allegations to come forward. They assure any potential survivor that they will be supported by specially trained officers who deal with sexual abuse, and also say that anyone who does come forward will be treated extremely seriously. Commander Stephen Clayman saying it is vital that any victim has a voice. And during Fayed's lifetime, because he died last year, so therefore he's not criminally liable, the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, twice did not prosecute him during his lifetime.
I mean, that's the big question now. I mean, it's all well and good them pursuing it now, but it's quite frankly too late.
Yeah, I mean, the Metropolitan Police is basically saying that in 2008, alleged victim of indecent assault, they presented evidence to the CPS. They chose not to charge, and a similar allegation in 2013. Again, CPS chose not to charge. The current boss of Harrods, Michael Ward, has spoken out, and he said that the business, Harrods, failed our colleagues. He also said that Mr. Fayed presided over a toxic culture of secrecy, intimidation, fear of repercussion and sexual misconduct. And Mr. Ward actually worked for Fayed for 4 years.
But that's an indication, then, that people really had, if they didn't know the facts, they had an inkling something was going on, and there were plenty of people in the inner circle, weren't there? So can they be held liable for anything?
Well, it was this time a week ago where I was sat in that press conference with a number of the victims and a number of the lawyers, and they suggested that there could have been associates of Al-Fayed who could well be liable, and that is something that the police spoke about yesterday. As well as that, we also had the General Medical Council. They have confirmed that they are investigating because at least 2 doctors allegedly carried out intrusive and unnecessary sexually transmitted disease tests on these victims of Al-Fayed. One of these doctors was actually doorstepped by the BBC yesterday, Dr. Anne Coxon, and she denies that she carried out these tests. Another doctor has subsequently died, and there could well be others. So although Fayed is dead, there could be a number of his associates who could well be liable.
There could also be a number of victims, a number of survivors who didn't feel as though they could come out when Mohammed Al-Fayed was alive, but they will be able to speak now, they feel.
Yeah, and what was so shocking during the press conference last week, that there were so many victims and survivors who spoke about the fear they had when Fayed was still alive, and also the threats that they came under, either from Fayed directly himself or indeed by his associates, saying, we know where you live, we know where your family live, we can ruin your career, things like that. You'll never work in London again. And of course, a lot of these women felt too scared to speak out, but now he's dead, and strength in numbers, a number are now coming forward.
OK, I know you're going to keep an eye on that for us. Can we talk about... I mean, frankly, it sounds a bit ridiculous. The manly pep talk between the Prime Minister of the day, Boris Johnson, and Prince Harry to try to stop Mexit.
Yes, so Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister, has spoke about this in his new memoir, Unleashed. And he was saying in January 2020, so when Harry and Meghan had already revealed that they were going to step back as working royals, but they had not yet done so, Buckingham Palace essentially pleaded with Boris to try and have a man-to-man pep talk with Prince Harry. Both old Etonians, both went to Eton College, and they had a 20-minute meeting in January 2020, just before Harry and Meghan stood back. But unfortunately, well, clearly, it did not work. A friend of Boris said Boris succeeded in delivering Brexit, but even he couldn't stop Megxit, which I think was quite an interesting line, because he failed in that. God.
I'm just slightly intrigued as to why the royal family would ask the Prime Minister to get involved in a personal matter like that.
I think what it shows is the very close relationship the government has with the palace, and then, of course, the late Queen and the monarch. And although it was technically a family matter, it wasn't just a family matter, it was also a constitutional matter, and the way this country is run, because having a very senior member of the royal family stand back could have potentially been a huge. I mean, it was a huge crisis for the monarchy, but it could have been an absolutely huge crisis for the monarchy. And clearly the Prime Minister would have an interest in that, the stability of this country. So perhaps that is why he was asked to get involved if all other avenues had failed, which clearly they had.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall for that conversation? 20 minutes, two of them in a room. Can we talk about Prince Harry now? Because he's been filmed, hasn't he, for the US TV host Jimmy Fallon's show.
Yeah.
Lots of screaming involved. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, lots of screaming, lots of swearing. At one point, he looked quite defensive. So it was part of Jimmy Fallon's sketch for a kind of Halloween spooktacular. And he didn't do an actual interview with Jimmy Fallon, but he did go into a kind of haunted house with lots of actors dressed up as zombies and ghosts and all the rest of it, trying to scare Prince Harry. You would have thought somebody who'd done 2 tours of Afghanistan would be a little bit more composed during the haunted house experience. He wasn't. There was lots of screaming and swearing and jumping, but he seems to be having a lot of fun. I suspect if he was still a member of the working royal family, you can see pictures on your screen now of Harry going into this haunted house, he would not have done this. I would suggest it's more, this is very celebrity, this is very Hollywood, this is very American. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, you've read my mind, Ellie. Yes, it's not particularly British and royal, but it's Harry's choice. He stood back as a working member of the royal family. He can do what he likes.
But the question about all of this, now I don't know if it carries any validity or not, is the idea that he's doing stuff without Meghan. It's this solo work. Is there anything to be read into that or not?
Well, yes and no. I think last year Prince Harry was in New York for a similar number of engagements. Harry did carry out a number of public engagements before he did this haunted house thing without Meghan. So perhaps Meghan just wants to stay in California at this time of year. But there has been a noticeable shift, I think, in the last couple of years that professionally they seem to be pursuing their own avenues. So Prince Harry has the Well Child Award. He's coming over to the United Kingdom on Monday to take part in that. He spoke to the Halo Trust. Princess Diana obviously was clearly heavily involved with that, walking through a landmine field in 1997. Harry also spoke to the Diana Award Trust, to Diana Award young people, all to do with mental health. But Meghan seems to be keeping quiet at the moment, pursuing her own interests with her American Riviera Orchard lifestyle brands and all the rest of it, which still hasn't happened. Reportedly, she hasn't been able to find a CEO for it. So, yes, but we do occasionally see them together. But, yeah, this week, perhaps not.
Okay. Cameron Walker, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Right, the Prime Minister has met President Trump overnight for the first time, trying to establish a new international relationship, apparently.
Well, it concludes Sir Keir Starmer's 3-day trip to New York after attending the United Nations annual meeting of world leaders.
Yeah, in that address, he warned the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah had the potential to spill into a war that nobody could control.
So we are ready to step up in a spirit of respect and equal partnership. I don't claim that solving these problems is easy, but there are positive, practical things that we can do together. This starts with addressing the rising tide of conflict and preventing a regional war in the Middle East. I call on Israel and Hezbollah, stop the violence, step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire.
Well, GB News' political editor Christopher Hope has the latest from New York.
Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK this morning after a rush round of diplomacy in New York City during the UN General Assembly. He's been trying to get a 3-week ceasefire deal between Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon and Israel to get UK citizens out there, get Brits out there. There's 2 warships in the region. Cyprus is available. Real worry about the future of British citizens in Lebanon. Also with Ukraine, he's been trying to talk to President Zelensky, get some kind of agreement between the West on this victory plan put forward by President Zelensky. He's due to meet, that's President Zelensky, with Donald Trump on Friday lunchtime UK time, a crucial meeting because if Trump wins the election on November the 5th, many fear that he may push Ukraine towards a peace deal they don't want with Russia. On Thursday night, Keir Starmer was due to meet with Donald Trump finally. And for GB News, I asked Donald Trump a question here in Trump Tower.
You're meeting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government have been quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? Yeah. But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
And would you rather Nigel Farage?
Who are you with?
I'm with GB News in the UK.
Okay, good.
Would you rather Nigel Farage would have had a bigger role?
Well, I think Nigel is great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He had a great election, too. He picked up a lot of seats, more seats than he was allowed to have, actually. They acknowledge that he won, but for some reason you have a very strange system over there. You might win him, but you don't get him. Nigel is a fantastic person.
So a big boost there for Nigel Farage, his old friend Donald Trump, of course, being pleasant. But this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK, battling with more issues about the so-called freebies he's been taking and how he can try and get a lid on that. It's a challenging time for him, but for him, for now, Sir Keir Starmer's time in the US has come to an end. Christopher Hope, Trump Tower, New York City.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's in Westminster. What does this do for the Prime Minister, Catherine? It puts him on a world stage. It puts him meeting someone who is incredibly influential, Donald Trump, even though they don't agree on a great deal. Does it give him a greater standing? Does it detract from the sort of allegations and chaos at home?
Well, I think the rumblings of discontent at home are going to continue, Stephen and Ellie. What it's done is given him a bit of a respite, a change of scenery, a chance to stride across the world stage. It's his third trip to the United States, and he's only been Prime Minister for 3 months. He was in New York for the NATO summit in July. I was with him in Washington just a fortnight ago, meeting the current president, Joe Biden. At the time there, all the talk was about Ukraine and Storm Shadow missiles. Of course, that is now overshadowed by the situation in the Middle East. But I think that Number 10 will be delighted with this visit because he's got to make his maiden speech to the UN General Assembly. We heard him talking about the need for a ceasefire in the Middle East. Now, the United Nations want a 3-week ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. I have to say, Benjamin Netanyahu does not appear to be in listening mode. There is no immediate sign that that is going to be happening. He'll be speaking at the Assembly later today. There's still the issue of Ukraine. Zelensky is there. He'll be talking later with Trump. Support still ongoing, but of course, if Trump becomes president, that could all change and change rapidly. And I think it is significant that Sir Keir Starmer has finally met Donald Trump. That election, 5th of November, either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris come January will become president. Now, if it is Kamala Harris, we may have pretty much a continuation of foreign policy that we've had under Joe Biden. But if it is Donald Trump, it could change very significantly and fast, particularly in regards to Ukraine. So Number 10 have been very, very keen for some time for the Prime Minister to physically meet Donald Trump, and they managed that last night. They had a 2-hour dinner together in Trump Tower, along with David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, who, of course, famously once called Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sociopath. Sir Keir Starmer has also said some pretty uncomplimentary things about Trump in his time, including accusing him of peddling the hate and division. Of course, everybody's being much more diplomatic now. The Prime Minister yesterday was telling journalists how important it was to have a face-to-face relationship. We heard Donald Trump there speaking to Chris Hope, being uncharacteristically diplomatic, saying, you know, that he thinks that the PM is a nice man, that he's very popular. He obviously hasn't seen the latest poll ratings for the Prime Minister back home in the United Kingdom.
Catherine Forster there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much.
Right, let's get a check on the weather for you. Here's Alex.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry, the overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, one or two developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also one or two scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but it's probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, some good news this morning. There's still plenty of time to win an incredible £36,000 in the Great British Giveaway.
It's lots of money, and it's all tax-free, and it could be yours. Here's how.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
£30,000 cash. Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Yes, you see, that is absolutely fantastic.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
I'm now joined by a truly inspirational man. He's an endurance runner, Ben Smith. 401 marathons in just 401 days for mental health and well-being. He was spurned on after being bullied as a child, was able to raise a whopping £250,000. I'm pleased to say that he joins me now. Right, so this was a while ago, wasn't it? This
Yes.
How long ago was it?
Well, we're coming up to, I think next year, roughly about 10 years since we started it. In 2026 will be 10 years since we finished.
So when did you run the marathons?
So it was between 2015 and 2016, over the course of 401 days, all around the UK.
What kind of madness was that?
Oh, it was an adventure, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, on day one when we started in Bristol, never ever thought that the project would ever become what it became. But over the course of the 401 days, we ran with 13,500 people within 8 miles of everywhere on the British mainland, from Land's End to John O'Groats. So,
and that was the journey from Land's End, John O'Groats?
Yeah. We covered so many different communities around the UK because I suppose the reason why I was doing it was to raise so much money for 2 anti-bullying charities that we wanted to include people in that. And yeah, I got to run in some amazing places.
I bet you did. What would you say is a beautiful place? I mean, the whole country, I love this country, but there are some outstanding, beautiful areas around. What would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Where's the best place that you run?
Well, I think I've got a few, but I think I would say probably the Highlands of Scotland.
I knew you were going to say someone like that.
Yeah, just the kind of vastness of it, the dramaticness of it. I remember running up and down one of the paths in the Highlands near Glencoe and coming face to face with a wild stag. So it was quite scary.
What did it do?
Oh, it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. It was quite used to people because of the path.
What are you doing here? This is my house.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We'll go through the sports now. Aidan McGee, you OK? Is here with us. Aidan, tell us, why did Tottenham start so late last night? 35 minutes late.
What a fiasco. So the game was meant to kick off at 8 o'clock. Tottenham won by 3-0 despite having just 10 men from the 7th minute onwards. So Karabag are a team from Azerbaijan. They travelled from Baku. It took 6.5 hours for them to fly to London, Ellie, and it took over 6.5 hours to get from the hotel in Stratford to Tottenham High Road, which I would estimate is probably about 5 miles. That's how bad it was.
Well, why didn't he get out and walk?
Well, you can't, what, 6... Yeah, I suppose so, yeah, you could do that, I guess. Well, that's what Glenn Hoddle did. Glenn Hoddle and Peter Crouch were covering the game for TNT, and they had to walk, or they had to run the last mile because they were in danger of missing the kickoff time. As I say, it was delayed in the end, but the High Road was packed. I mean, when they built that stadium 5 years ago, they opened it in 2019, I did feel that the access with all those 25,000 extra people in the new stadium was going to be a problem, and so it's proved because the High Road was absolutely packed last night. There were also problems on the trains. Greater Anglia trains were busy. There was a fatality on the line, on one of the other lines as well, which caused gridlock. And even coming from the south in the M25, for those who know London, it was absolutely packed. And so, as I say, the game was delayed by 35 minutes. As I say, Tottenham did win, but it looks like Karabag are going to receive a fine by UEFA because there are rules. You have to be there for 75 minutes before the kick-off. Don't forget, there's a serious side to this as well. The TV companies.
Oh, were Tottenham there 75 minutes before the kick-off?
Of course, yeah, they were. Yeah, but they've got to play somebody, haven't they?
They didn't have far to go, to be fair.
But if it took them 6.5 hours.
No, Karabag. This is Karabag.
Oh, Karabag.
Yeah, Karabag.
Oh, I thought it was Tottenham who was late.
No. Karabag were late.
Glad to across the details.
So, look, there is a serious side to it because these TV companies pay huge amounts of money to screen these games live, and they have to kick off at certain times because there's advertising observances to uphold, and it messes with the schedule. You know, I mean,
so Karabag's basically been given a congestion charge. Welcome to our world.
They probably had to pay that as well.
Yeah.
But no, it's pretty bad. I was offered a ticket. I was offered 4 tickets at 4 o'clock, and that's probably the reason why. It's probably somebody who was stuck in traffic.
Saw the traffic, yeah.
Do we 4 of them? Can we have a look at Manchester City and their legal troubles?
Well, yeah, they've got 115 charges of breaching Premier League financial rules hanging over them. That hearing is going on at the moment in secret. Now, there has been an issue about this problem of associated party transaction. Now, what that means is that football clubs who've got relationships with companies have been inflating, allegedly, the value of the deals because under the rules of financial fair play and profit and sustainability, it's in your interest to bloat as much as possible your income and make your outgoings look as little as possible. And City have challenged this, and a 3-person judge said that they were right to challenge it because the clubs who objected to it were acting with political motivation because City have got big relationships with companies like Etihad. And it's one of those things that's going to go through the 115 charges. And I think that with all those charges, I think many of them could relate to an issue like that. So if you could get maybe half of those charges thrown out, who knows? It might be a difference between 1 relegation and 2. You never know.
Aidan, thank you.
Good to see
you. Thanks for eating baked beans with us.
No worries.
It's been fun.
Right, coming up, we've got a man on a mission. No, not me. It's a climber who's made it to the top of Mount Snowdon and 3 other mountains numerous times. We'll tell you why in a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services are suspended northbound from Carlisle to both Glasgow Central and Edinburgh Waverley after a train broke down at Lockerbie. Buses replaced trains between Doncaster and both Hull and Scunthorpe because of a cable theft. And buses replaced trains between Shrewsbury and Wolverhampton because of a cable theft and also because of flooding. Now, the M5 in Gloucestershire is closed in both directions because of flooding. Southbound's closed from junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowlfield turn to the M4 with queues from the Micklewood services. Northbound's closed from junction 16 at Aztec West to junction 14, and there are delays too on the A38 as you divert. On the M4 in Cardiff, the inside lane's closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 32 and 30 from the Corriton interchange to Cardiff Gate, causing queues. And in East Sussex, the A27 is blocked by an accident at Selmerston, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, a brave man, slightly crackers man, who we're going to meet with in a minute, is embarked on a mission to climb the UK's 3 highest mountains, but doing it a number of times so that each one is the equivalent of climbing Everest. The one that matters, of course, most is Scafell Pike
Which
in
is
the
in
lakes,
your neck of the woods.
which is beautiful but very dangerous, actually.
Well, Stephen Alexi was inspired to raise money for the Naomi Cherry Goff Foundation after Naomi died in a road traffic incident back in 2007.
Well, Stephen's wrapping up the Snowdon leg of his journey, and he joins us now. Good morning to you. I stand by my comment, Stephen. Crackers. Because, I mean, I've done Scafell Pike. It is my neck of the woods. It's hard work. Why would you want to do it, 9 times?
Very, very hard work. Good morning to you both. I'm very, very aching this morning, beyond belief. I actually finished the challenge yesterday. And
congratulations.
In the middle of the day, I reached the last summit of Mount Snowdon, which was pure elation. I've just been taken to the mental brink, really, on each of the mountains. But it's something that I set myself to do after a really difficult 12 months. I got sent to prison last August for some business mistakes that I made back in 2016. And unfortunately, obviously, the judge thought it was the right course of action to do that. But, you know, these things happen in life. So I had two options to either, you know, be crumbled by the adversity or come out of it stronger at the other end. So I set this challenge to climb the 3 highest mountains in the whole UK, the equivalent of Mount Everest, which I believe has never been done before. And on the back of that, to raise some good awareness and funds for the Naomi Goff Foundation, which is very close to my heart. Yeah, I have been taken to the brink, and at times I didn't think I was going to do it, but, you know, I'm coming out the other end and I've managed to complete it. So I feel really, really good this morning.
Oh, well, congratulations, Stephen. And you must feel absolutely incredible having completed that amazing challenge. Just run us through, because I've got the notes in front of me, but it is incredible what you've achieved. So Snowdon, you've climbed how many times?
So Snowdon was 8 times, which is the highest mountain in Wales, consecutively. Yeah. So what I need to get the point across is it's literally, you know, the summit and the descent as well, because sometimes, as anyone who's climbed a mountain will know, when you're coming down, it can be harder than going up, you know, on your knees and your ankles and everything else. So, yeah, it's up and down 8 times.
And Scarfell, how many times did you do that?
Scarfell Pike was 9 consecutive times. Wow. Again, that mountain, I'd never want to see that mountain again.
You must have become very familiar with it over time. And then you did Ben Nevis a number of times as well, didn't you?
Ben Nevis was 7 consecutive times, yes. That was the first one that we started on, which, again, I got up the second time thinking, how the hell am I going to do this?
And in what time scale, Stephen?
So it's taken me just over 7 days to do it. I originally planned 7 days, but the last 2 summits at Snowdon, we got hit with really, really bad weather. So the 7th summit of Snowdon was really difficult. It was like God was throwing everything at me to say, look, I'm going to make these last 2 pure pain. So then we had to push the 8th summit at Snowdon into Thursday, which made it over 8 days. But it's all recorded on my Strava, so everything's absolutely logged in there, and it's actually been submitted for a world record. So they're going to have all the evidence, and hopefully we'll hear from them soon on that. So.
And what was it like for you physically and mentally taking part in this challenge?
Oh, it was so difficult. I actually, you know, before we set off last Wednesday, my mind was saying, you know, what are you doing? And I was being tested even at that point, but I trained for 8 months. I knew physically I was in a good position to do it. I'd done lots of training on Scarfell and Snowdon. But, you know, I just got my mind right. And once I got up the first peak at Ben Nevis, you know, I knew I was in a good place. But even at that point, I'm thinking, you know, this is crazy. You're meeting people on the way up doing it once, and they're just, you know, saying, I can't believe you're doing this. But just got myself in a good mind space and kept my mind going. Knew it was for a good cause, and you know, I'm a person who, when I say I'm going to do something, I always tend to do that. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, 24 peaks, in effect, in 8 days it is frankly unbelievable. Go and have a good rest, have a lie down.
Cup of tea, I think.
Cup of tea and an entire box of Kendal mint cake, I think, to keep you going. Really good to see you, Stephen. Congratulations.
Stephen, before we let you go, if people want to donate to you, how can they do it?
Yeah, so if you just go into Just Giving and search Everest 3 National Peaks, it should come up, and obviously it'll be on there, the link, and it'll be very much appreciated by the Naomi Goff Foundation, who are just an incredible charity, and I'm so proud to have got to this point and created awareness for them. You know, it's a big thing, so.
Oh, well, congratulations to you, and let's hope lots of people dig deep and donate to you. Fantastic cause.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a nice day, yeah?
Pleasure, and you. I just can't I can't get my head around it.
No. I wouldn't even be walking down the road, especially if it was raining.
But, I mean, it's
People
just...
are incredible, aren't they?
It is 24 peaks.
In 8 days.
In 8 days. But mind you, that's climbing up Everest. That's the equivalent of climbing up and down Everest once.
Can't imagine it, can you?
Honestly.
Amazing.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Right, now, are you a weekend warrior workouter?
Are you?
No. But is it as effective as exercising daily? We'll find out because it's in the papers next.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Founded in 1990 in Knightsbridge in London, the Beverly Hills Bakery offers some of the finest American baked goods in the United Kingdom. Beverly Hills Bakery has delivered gifts to all the UK Prime Ministers of the last 20 years, with, I think, the exception of Sir Keir Starmer so far, and provided gifts for the royal family and for royal births. As we near the 35th anniversary of the bakery, I'm joined by the owner and head pastry chef, Rosa de Souza, and Manuel de Souza, who is the director of the Beverly Hills Bakery. How marvellous to see you both. Welcome to GB News.
Thank you for inviting us.
So, why has this formula worked? Why did London need a Beverly Hills Bakery?
What we do is we're a bakery, but underlying it's actually a gifting experience.
Right.
So this is an alternative to flowers. So in terms of concept, that has maintained its originality despite going on for 35 years. And in fact, what I do is I often ask myself, why is it going strong? To remind myself to focus on those things that we need to focus on.
So instead of sending a bunch of flowers, you send a beautiful box of cakes like that, or affection like that, complete with bunnies and so on.
Exactly. So you have the concept on the one hand, but you also need the quality of product that goes inside. And I think that's where Beverly Hills Bakery has got a great product.
And it's where Rosa comes in, isn't
it?
Yes.
Yes.
So when did you start to bake? Did you start to bake domestically in your home, and did it spread from there?
We started from home, my mother's baking, where we didn't have all the stoves and things like that. We baked on the charcoal, like the grease.
Yes.
And we started baking. I learned from my mother the baking.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, time to have a look through the papers for you once again this morning with Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers, and writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth. Good to see you both this morning. Let's have a look at the Mail, Fraser. It's saying COVID danger was overpitched, says Chris Whitty.
Yes, so Chris Whitty is saying that maybe they did a bit too much fear-mongering at the start of the pandemic. Now, he's not saying that he regrets any of the measures that he took. He's not saying for one second that COVID wasn't serious. As the Mail reminds us, 227,000 people died of COVID between 2020 and 2023. But, there were consequences to essentially telling everyone that they were at serious risk. And one of the tragedies is that we weren't able to sort of stratify the risk because people, if you were elderly, if you had underlying conditions, you were at very, very high risk. Whereas if you were young, if you were fit, then it probably really wasn't much of a danger to you. And one of the consequences of this, which actually Whitty himself admits, is that many people who should have gone to hospital didn't go to hospital out of fear of contracting the disease. But there's also, all kinds of things happened as a result. If you think about it, schools were closed for much longer than they needed to be. Because again, teachers probably not in an at-risk demographic. Children certainly weren't at risk at all. So,
Well, they were at risk
very low risk.
Low risk.
Much lower risk. Much lower risk. Sorry, actually, yeah. Everyone was at risk to a certain extent. So I think next time, if something bad, similar happens, we need to think about, who is actually at risk. And also, let's not forget, the most at-risk group, the elderly, were basically abandoned in care homes. A lot of the time, the policy early on was even that we should send people who are positive with COVID into care homes. That's a completely crazy, mad policy. So again, we need to look at we need to be a lot more clever next time when something like this comes around. Think about who is at risk. Do we really need to take away the freedoms of the young and the healthy? What resources can we put into protecting the elderly or the infirm to, really help those who need it?
Candice, what do you think?
Yes, I think that there was such a panicked atmosphere at the time. We weren't always able to consider trade-offs adequately. So, for instance, the education of young children, you had people saying, listen, they're not at high risk, perhaps it's better to have them at school, but I mean, there was no way that anyone could countenance that at that particular time. It's like what Fraser spoke about, people in care homes sort of being abandoned and suffering from lack of human contact. There's so much stuff like that we just weren't able to consider, and it was a very crude response. And you can understand why it was a crude response, because people become very risk-averse in situations like that. But I hope that we've learned the lessons of that now.
That's the key, yeah. I'm a bit loath to be overly critical, because it's like, well, how did anyone know any better, really?
At the time, yeah.
At the time. But you have got to see where it went wrong and what actually wasn't right, and learn the lessons for next time, because there will be a next time.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So we have a look at the Times, Candice. Britain's going to talk less and listen more.
So this is quite an interesting story. So this is in the Times. This is Starmer basically doing a Barack Obama-style reset of Britain's place on the world stage. So he says we're going to take a lot less of a paternalistic, as he terms it, view of things, and we're going to stand back and listen more. And I remember Barack Obama spoke like that back in 2008. He said, he did a big tour around the Middle East, and he said he was rehabilitating America's reputation on the world stage. But my argument would be, in a time of crisis like this, where you've got the rise of dictators all over the world, maybe the world's democracies retreating from the world stage isn't such a good thing. I mean, people did argue that, Barack Obama, you saw a lot more, like Assad, for instance, in Syria becoming empowered because America just refused to get involved in any way, and sort of it has knock-on effects.
Yeah, but when we do get... The issue is, and I totally get the point, but like when we do get involved more, I mean, it's things... we armed Saddam Hussein.
And stuff like that.
Stuff like that. And then, so are we not creating more problems when we get involved?
We can. So they can. So, I mean, you look, for instance, at the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. I mean, we created so many of those problems in Afghanistan. But one of the problems is we're very good at arming people militarily, but then we're not so good at the rebuilding. So, I mean, that absolutely failed in Afghanistan, that absolutely failed in Iraq, and that's the really important thing. That's what you have to do, and those voices are always missing.
Yeah,
I think his speech is quite contradictory, actually, in a way. He's saying he wants to, have less of a presence on the world stage, listen more than speak. But actually, then at the same time, you have David Lammy and Ed Miliband saying, listen to us on climate change. We want to be the world leaders on net zero. And so there's a lot of finger wagging to other countries about how they organise their economies and energy policy. Or also you have, they want to boost the foreign aid budget. Now, to cut through the sort of crap. The point of the foreign aid budget is not to help poor people, it's to expand Britain's influence in the world. So again, it seems slightly contradictory what he's saying. I think he does want to influence other countries, and one of the things, we know how much he loves Brussels, we know how much he wants to get back in with the EU. Again, his argument for that is about Britain's influence. So it just doesn't make any sense to me what he's trying to say.
And is this the same Sir Keir Starmer who said that the Labour government is going to tread more lightly on all of our lives? I mean, the pensioners without winter fuel allowance don't feel like it's being tread lightly.
No, I mean, this is very empty rhetoric, and I don't understand who he's setting himself against. Is he setting himself against Boris Johnson's involvement in the Ukraine conflict, for instance, or is he going way back to colonialism when Britain had an empire? There's been a huge amount of time between that happening and now, and Britain's played a very different role on the world stage since. So you wonder if they're kind of enthralled to certain fashionable woke ideas, or if he's actually responding pragmatically to the situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Oh, well. I'm afraid with a lot of that, we're going to have to suck it and see a little bit, I think. What have we got? 3 minutes left?
3 minutes.
Let's have... Go on, can we do that one?
Which one do you want to do? The attack of the creepy giant baby doll, Fraser.
Oh, the poor people of Rochdale have been subjected to this 27-foot baby model that is... it's meant to be for children. It's meant to increase their awareness of the environment, and it's absolutely terrifying. People have described it as the Chucky of the North.
Yeah, I don't think it's like Chucky.
That is scary.
It reminds me of that big doll in Squid Games.
Oh yes,
it does sound like the big doll in
Squid Games. Yeah.
Any baby that large is absolutely terrifying, and it's going to give those children nightmares.
How does it improve children's awareness of the environment?
I think this is a great mystery that I think that nowadays if you create a bad piece of public art, you can just say, oh well, it's about the environment. Oh well, it's about race, or I think it becomes it's a good way to get funding for your bad art projects if you say it has a social message, even if that message isn't particularly well conveyed.
That is so true. You can have something that's visually mediocre or visually terrifying even, but it's always this explanation behind it that's seen as more valid.
What would your kids make of this, Candice?
Oh, I think they would. Thing is, babies are only cute. Like, they're cute because they're so tiny. That's why if you make a baby large, it becomes scary because, babies, if they were very large, would be quite scary.
They're not meant to be that big.
No.
I have to say, I don't mind it. I wouldn't have said it was bad art. I mean, it's quite an impressive thing. If you saw it I'd be quite intrigued by it, but...
I think it's terrifying.
Maybe not for kids. Maybe it's not for kids, though.
I don't know.
I'd be walking the other way. Talking of walking, Candice.
Yes.
Weekend warriors, people that work out twice a week.
Yes.
Quite good for you.
Well, this is good for me because I don't have much time in the week, so I definitely cram all my exercise in on the weekends. So this is a story in the Times where they found that even if you don't exercise daily, if you do a really good workout on the weekend, that total volume of exercise is good and has the same effect, and it reduces your chance of developing depression, kidney disease, diabetes, all these things that we associate with poor health, which is a really good thing because I think when you actually look at the data, people think, oh, I need to be exercising all the time to be healthy.
But it's about consistency, isn't it?
Yes, so consistency is important. So if every weekend you're getting in that workout...
Like your park run or something.
You'll be absolutely fine and you'll have done the recommended time to reduce all your, vulnerabilities to all these chronic diseases.
So it's bad news for you because you work weekends, as do I.
Yeah, but I do a lot of walking.
You do a lot of walking?
Yeah, but that's every day.
How long do you have to walk Rex for? Miles and miles?
18 hours a day. So it's a lot of walking.
Walking's really good for you.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to go running. Are you going to go running?
No, I don't that. Especially not on your weekends. That's for fun things.
Well, exactly.
But if got the time during
if you can cram it all in 2 days, is that not like having your 5 a day on a Sunday because you just put it all into a smoothie or something? Well, so that's my vegetables for the week.
That sounds like a great idea. If the scientists say it works, who can object?
Oh.
Yeah.
Some people love their park runs at like 6 o'clock in the morning.
They're mad, a lot of them. No offence.
They are crackers people. A relative of mine runs up mountains.
Yes.
Like before breakfast.
Oh my God.
And then we'll come back and then go to work.
Yeah, there are people built like that. One of my friends ran a park run for the first time ever, won the whole thing.
Wow.
Started it one morning. Yeah.
There you go. I hate them. I hate them. Thank you both very much indeed. Here's your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry, the overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, 1 or 2 developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also 1 or 2 scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night. And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland, and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year. Goodbye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M180 in Lincolnshire is blocked eastbound between junctions 2 and 3 towards Scunthorpe, causing queues. Buses replace trains between Scunthorpe and Doncaster and between Hull and Doncaster because of a cable theft, and buses replace trains between Shrewsbury and Wolverhampton because of a cable theft and because of flooding. In Leicestershire, the A6 is closed southbound along Leicester Road at Oadby in Leicester because of flooding. Bedfordshire, the A421 remains closed each way because of flooding between the A6 and M1 near Bedford, and the A6 is closed northbound along Paul Radcliffe Way out of Bedford. The M5 in Gloucestershire is closed each way because of flooding. Southbound from junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowlfield turn to 15 for the M4. Northbound from junction 16 at Aztec West to junction 14 with queues towards there, and on the A38 as you divert. And in East Sussex, the A27 is blocked by an accident at Selmeston, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's an incredible £36,000 to be won in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having an extra £3,000 each month to play with. And because it's totally tax-free, you get to keep every penny and spend it however you like. We could be paying for your entire year until...
You need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's at the Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. Keir Starmer has met President Trump in New York overnight.
It's the first time the Prime Minister's met with the Republican presidential candidate. And speaking to GB News before their meeting, Trump was full of praise.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
Meanwhile, in New York, as tensions rise in the Middle East, Keir Starmer's called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in his first address to the UN.
Escalation serves no one. It offers nothing but more suffering for innocent people on all sides, and the prospect of a wider war that no one can control.
Forget Brexit. Could Boris Johnson have stopped Megxit? Well, the former PM reveals his manly pep talk with Prince Harry to try and convince the royal couple to stay in the UK.
Police reveal 19 women reported rape or sexual assault against the Harrods boss, Mohammed Al Fayed. So why was he never arrested?
There's still some heavy rain around at the moment, but it is clearing away. And for most, it's going to be a much drier, much brighter, but also colder day. Join me later for all today's weather details and a look at Saturday.
It's 9:01. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. We've been talking fashion this morning.
Oh, well, it's something we know a lot about.
We do, because we make an effort, you might have noticed, to match every day, don't we, when we're together. Lots of people messaging in saying that we look very smart. They appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
But not Sue Edwards.
Oh,
she's not happy with us.
Sue.
Oh, no. She said, please, can you and Stephen stop matching? Yesterday, you look like you worked for EasyJet. Today, you look like you work for Jet2. It's very distracting when you're watching the programme.
Just because you want to go on holiday, Sue?
No.
Actually, I've not been
Make
on...
you think of the airlines.
I've not been on Jet2.
Neither have I.
So they wear red, did they?
Apparently they play a song when you land. I don't know how I feel about that.
No, I don't feel about that, no.
It's like a Jess Glynne song.
On my holiday, we went Ryanair, and on the flight out, there was a round of applause when we landed. No.
Who started that? Not you?
No, somebody at the front. It was not a pleasant experience, that flight.
I don't know how I feel about that one either.
No.
But we're talking about fashion because there is a study, if you can call it that, in the Daily Mail this morning about the most iconic fashion of all time. And Levi jeans have come out on top. A design for the ages. Oh, here it is. This is page 3 of the Daily Mail today. You might see at the bottom there, number 20, Adidas Popper joggers have
what are
onto the list. They look like this. It's very 80s.
Oh, those with the things at the studs at the side.
Literal poppers on the side of your tracksuit bottoms, basically.
In case you want to take them off sideways.
Yes.
It would seem.
Alex Larson's been in touch saying, Adidas poppers, wow, absolute beauties.
Yeah.
I think that might be sarcasm. What do you think?
I don't know. I can't tell with people. But fashion doesn't have to be expensive. Someone who shall remain nameless, Andrew Pearce, yesterday said, oh, I really like your tie, the orange. I really like your tie. Where's that from? And when I told him and said it cost $6.99, he suddenly decided he didn't like the tie. He would have liked it if it was £120 from Hermes or something.
Somewhere really posh.
But because it's actually a very cheap tie, he didn't like it. You see, Andrew, it's all about the money with Andrew.
He likes his brands. I wonder how many items on this list.
But then he's friends with Joan Collins.
Exactly.
So
maybe that's how you become friends with Joan Collins.
She wouldn't appreciate my cheap ties.
Anyway, do get in touch. If you own any of the items on that list, how do they make you feel? Do you think they are the most iconic stars of all time? Let us know. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, the Prime Minister, who doesn't have to worry about buying his own fashion, as we know, met with President Trump for the first time overnight to try to establish a new international relationship.
Well, it concludes Keir Starmer's 3-day trip to New York after attending the United Nations annual meeting of world leaders.
Well, our political editor, Christopher Hope, has the latest from New York.
So Keir Starmer is back in the UK this morning after a rush round of diplomacy in New York City during the UN General Assembly. He's been trying to get a 3-week ceasefire deal between Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon and Israel to get UK citizens out there, get Brits out there. There's 2 warships in the region. Cyprus is available. Real worry about the future of British citizens in Lebanon. Also with Ukraine, he's been trying to talk to President Zelensky, get some kind of agreement between the West on this victory plan put forward by President Zelensky. He's due to meet, that's President Zelensky, with Donald Trump on Friday lunchtime UK time, a crucial meeting because if Trump wins the election on November the 5th, many fear that he may push Ukraine towards a peace deal they don't want with Russia. On Thursday night, Keir Starmer was due to meet with Donald Trump finally. And for GB News, I asked Donald Trump a question here in Trump Tower.
You're meeting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government have been quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right? Yeah. But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well. It's very early, but he's popular, and I'll be seeing him, and I'll send you regards.
And would you rather Nigel Farage?
Who are you with?
I'm with GB News in the UK.
Okay, good.
Would you rather Nigel Farage had a bigger role?
Well, I think Nigel is great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He had a great election, too. He picked up a lot of seats, more seats than he was allowed to have, actually. They acknowledge that he won, but for some reason you have a very strange system over there. You might win him, but you don't get him. Nigel is a fantastic person.
So a big boost there for Nigel Farage, his old friend Donald Trump, of course, being pleasant. But this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is back in the UK, battling with more issues about the so-called freebies he's been taking and how he can try and get a lid on that. It's a challenging time for him, but for him, for now, Sir Keir Starmer's time in the US has come to an end. Christopher Hope, Trump Tower, New York City.
Well, our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, joins us live now from Westminster. Good to see you this morning, Catherine. And warm words, generous words there from Donald Trump to Sir Keir Starmer. Do you think Sir Keir Starmer is hedging his bets by meeting Donald Trump in New York?
Well, certainly he is indeed. And I think Number 10 will be delighted that they've actually got this meeting to happen at last. Previously, they've only spoken once over the phone after the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump. But the Prime Minister saying yesterday how important it is to meet face to face. He's been jetting all over the world, really. It's his third trip to the United States, but they really wanted to meet Trump because election in the States, November the 5th, come January 20th, either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris will be the president. Now, of course, they already have good relations with the Democrats, their sort of sister party. He's met Joe Biden a number of times, hasn't met Kamala Harris yet, would have liked that to happen, but wasn't possible with diary commitments. But I think the more significant meeting anyway is with Donald Trump. They spent 2 hours having dinner in that iconic Trump Towers, along with David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, who not very long ago called Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sociopath. Of course, the Prime Minister wasn't too complimentary about Donald Trump either, accused him in the past of peddling the politics of hate and division, but all diplomatically nice now, of course. And how interesting to see Donald Trump, who is inclined to tell it how he sees it, also playing nice yesterday, telling our political editor Chris Hope that he thinks the Prime Minister is nice, that he's won a big victory, that he's very popular. He obviously hasn't seen the latest poll ratings back in the United Kingdom. But it is important that they form a relationship because the election in the US is too close to call, and there will be big consequences for the world, whoever ends up in the White House. If it is Donald Trump, his approach to foreign policy is likely to be very different from Joe Biden, particularly around Ukraine. He wants a deal to be done. So a significant move, but also, of course, the Prime Minister making his first address to the United Nations General Assembly. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
So we are ready to step up in a spirit of respect and equal partnership. I don't claim that solving these problems is easy, but there are positive, practical things that we can do together. This starts with addressing the rising tide of conflict and preventing a regional war in the Middle East. I call on Israel and Hezbollah, stop the violence, step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire.
So the Prime Minister joining calls from across the United Nations for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be speaking in New York later. At the moment, it does sound that despite the best efforts to find a ceasefire, Israel and Hezbollah don't seem to be in any mood to compromise. This issue has overshadowed completely what only a week or so ago, we expected the focus of the General Assembly to be on, which was Ukraine. President Zelensky will be meeting Donald Trump today, trying to persuade him to stick with supporting Ukraine, not pushing them into a deal which they do not want to do.
OK, Catherine, for now, thank you.
The Metropolitan Police are appealing for any potential victim survivors of alleged sexual abuse by Mohammed Al-Fayed to come forward.
In a statement, they said they must ensure that every victim has the confidence to speak out about the former Harrods boss and allow them to explore whether anybody else should be pursued for related offences.
Well, let's speak now to GB News correspondent Cameron Walker with the latest. And Cameron, we've had such serious allegations come out in the past few days or so, and now more women are coming forward.
Yeah, a number of allegations, and the number keeps on growing by the looks of this. As you said, the Metropolitan Police is asking for any victim to come forward, or any alleged victim to come forward. They say they've been in contact with the lawyers of those who have bravely waived their anonymity already, who took part in the BBC investigation to start with, and indeed the press conference last Friday. But crucially, the Met have also confirmed that they were exploring if there's any individuals who were closely associated with Al-Fayed who may well be liable. Because, of course, Al-Fayed died last year at the age of 94. He is not criminally liable, but there could well be others, either civil or criminal. The BBC yesterday doorstepped a doctor, Anne Coxon. Now, there have been a number of allegations regarding alleged victims of Al-Fayed who alleged that they were subjected to intrusive and unnecessary sexual health screenings from two doctors who worked for Mr. Fayed at the Times. Now, Dr. Anne Coxon has denied all those allegations against her. Another doctor who, with similar allegations against her, has since died, but there could well be others. The Crown Prosecution Service, during Fayed's lifetime, failed to prosecute him twice. They have accepted that. The Met Police presented them with evidence in 2008 and 2013. So although Fayed is dead, it appears there are a number of associates who could well have some questions to answer.
The issue with this, what strikes me with this, is it's a bit like the Jimmy Savile thing, where the fact these allegations are being made doesn't come as any great surprise. Does it? And yet it's been... We can't libel the dead, thankfully, but, I mean... If it's gone on for years, and people will have been aware of it.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of MO, isn't it? It's somebody who's pretty rich, pretty powerful, seems untouchable at the time, but has a very sinister side behind the scenes. And the current Harrods boss, Michael Ward, has kind of said words to that effect. He said that Harrods clearly failed our colleagues, is what he said, and Fayed presided over a toxic culture of secrecy. And Mr. Ward actually worked for Mr. Fayed for 4 years, but he says he was not aware of any of his criminality or abuse. But clearly there must have been, lawyers said last week in the press conference, that there must have been people who knew what Fayed was doing, because he cannot have done it on his own. Others needed to give him the opportunities to do so.
OK, Cameron Walker, thank you very much.
Right, still to come for you. Do men have a problem making friends? We're going to be talking to the author of Billy No Mates to find out if it really is a problem. Tell you more in a minute.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're joined by Lewis Oakley and Esther Stanhope. And Lewis, let's start with free gear Keir, shall we? It's been the story of the week, and apparently it's led to, well, calamity in the polls.
Yeah, so he has dropped by 26 points in the opinion polls. And, I mean, it's just been sort of going down from day one. He didn't even start that high. But, yeah, this is just bad optics. As we say, like, he hasn't done anything illegal or wrong. Everything was declared, but at the same time, you're telling people they don't get their winter fuel allowance, and you're there walking off with your swag bag. It's just not a good look. And even, you know, I was thinking as well the optics of them trying to clamp down on MPs having second jobs. You know, any of those could turn around and say, well, actually, we have to pay for our own clothes. I just think it's just bad optics that he's had. And, you know, we've got those comparisons of Sunak in the stands. He's just sat amongst the people. And
Prince William goes to Villa games, albeit in the director's box, but it's not an 8k per game seat. And by the way, can I just mention, this isn't just an isolated Labour incident. Since the start of their tenure, they were accused of filling the civil service with previous Labour donors, previous Labour aides, people who worked for Labour Together think tank. The civil service is meant to be politically neutral, and they bypassed a lot of procedures to get people into their positions, not least the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who parachuted Ian Caulfield, his name was, who donated £5,000 personally to her, and then he ended up in the Treasury with a 175k a year job. Yes, he did resign after it was revealed in the Times, but it does make you wonder, you know, you've spent years having a go at the Tories for this, and you do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's full of hypocrisy, and also the whole Sue Gray thing, and they were slagging off the Conservatives for not towing the line, and now they're being hypocrites because now they're taking freebies.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9:17. Would you like to get your hands on a whole pile of cash?
Yes, please. How do I do that?
Well, you do that because you got a chance of winning 36 grand in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. Here's how.
You could be the next Great British Giveaway winner with a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash in your bank account. Imagine getting the winning phone call for that.
£30,000 cash.
The best. And,
they taste the best, yeah?
And 76 people thought that. 76% of people thought that. I thought, it's true. They were by far the best.
Yeah. Stunning. Stunning can of beans. And I've said that from the very beginning. I am a baked beans connoisseur after all.
Susan says you look great and fantastic journalism this morning. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. All your views, gbnews.com/your-say.
Now, new research has revealed 1 in 5 Brits feel crippled by social anxiety when speaking to new people.
Max Dickens is the author of Billy No Mates, and he wrote the book after struggling to choose a best man for his wedding.
Oh, well, we're joined now by the author of Billy No Mates. How a man realised they have a friendship problems, Max Dickens. Good to see you this morning. Max, is this something that men really struggle with, then you sense, that they struggle to make new friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at research, since records have began when they started looking at friendship, social scientists, men have had fewer friends than women, and especially fewer close friends. And the problem gets worse as we get older. So you often notice with blokes, it's sort of at the pinch points of life, like maybe they get divorced or suffer bereavement, or retirement's a big one. They suffer worse mental and physical health outcomes than women because they are generally more disconnected. And it's a problem, but it's a problem actually for lots of people. So there's a study that came out recently from Nomo, the vegan chocolate brand, that said 1 in 10 Brits don't have any friends at all. A quarter of us describe ourselves as lonely. So it seems to affect blokes especially, but all of us could do with some more connections.
Is it really a problem? Because, do we want men to be like women? Women often will sit there, they'll have a gossip to anyone, they don't mind. We're a bit more picky, aren't we? What's wrong with that?
Do you know what? The big difference between male and female friendships, I don't know if it's pickiness, is that male friendships tend to revolve around doing an activity, whereas female friendships tend to revolve around talk, and especially talking about often quite emotionally sensitive subjects. That's the research bears that out. And what happens as blokes get older is we tend to leave those activities we used to share behind, and that's what causes our friendships to decline. Lose the activity, you often lose the friendship. But I think it's easy to say that we don't need friendships so much. But actually, it's so important for our mental health, for even our physical health, and just for our basic happiness. I mean, isn't having friends one of the best bits of life?
I mean, having friends and friendship is so beneficial, isn't it, to our mental health and our physical health, really, and laughter and being together, it's all good stuff. Do you think, you know, touching upon the of relationships, do you think that's what it is, men not checking in with each other, talking about their emotions, that means that ultimately a friendship can't really be formed because it's such surface level stuff?
There's definitely a bit of that. I mean, guys will often have mates from the pub, mates from football, whatever. But do they know those guys on a deeper level? Perhaps not. I think a lot of it's how we talk to each other. Some of the best thing about male friendships is that banter, that jazz of casual brutality, I call it, about how we relate to each other. And that can be great fun, but sometimes it blocks us off. I think another big thing with blokes is we often outsource the friend making as we get older to the women in our lives, maybe our wives. There's this kind of idea that men don't have friends, they have wives who have friends who have husbands, and we can treat women like the HR department a little bit and then not really control our own relationships, when I think we can step forward and show a bit more leadership there.
Max Dickens, good to see you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're not sold on this, are you? I think that's pretty good. Ben Leo, you care about this issue, don't you? We've spoken about this before, that men need to focus on their friendships and checking in with their friends. Because they become quite isolated over time.
I find I'm sort of mid-30s now, and I find, and many other men do, that the older you get, as you get involved in your family and kids and so on, your friendship groups from your 20s and teenage years kind of fade away a bit, and you've got to make the effort to kind of keep them together.
I don't have any friends anyway, so there's no issues there.
Need to have these big groups,
No,
loads of friends.
I think you need 2 or 3 solid friends. And also, I think it's important to have friends that aren't your wife's friends either.
Yeah, of course.
No, that's a good point.
Anyway,
what's coming up in your show today, Billy?
Well, we will talk about Boris Johnson, soon to be of this parish, as I understand it, very soon. He advised Prince Harry not to give up the royal family, not to leave, but obviously Harry didn't listen, so we'll be having a little convo about that.
Interesting story I just spotted. So Brian May, the Queen guitarist, he has quit his vice presidential role at the RSPCA because he says their assured farms, which are the farms the RSPCA reckon are safe and welfare standards are high. You see the logo on packets of, I don't know, meat and bacon and things. He says they're not good enough, and the RSPCA is not doing enough to improve welfare standards. So he's quit.
Well, there have been, there've been a couple of cases where they're having to review. Some of the RSPCA's had to review some of the farms, hasn't it? But Brian's a big advocate of animal welfare, so he might come on. You don't know.
Hopefully. And
right.
Thanks, you
get
too.
time. Get off.
We'll see you later.
No, you get off.
Yeah, we'll get off. See you later.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Thankfully, after the downpours across the south earlier this week, it is looking a lot drier out there today, but it is also going to be turning colder. Not completely dry, the overnight rain still affecting parts of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but it is scooting away pretty sharply. Should be gone by late morning from Kent. Then we'll have a few showers coming in around the coast of Northern Ireland, into parts of Wales, southwest England, a few in the east as well, and certainly over northern Scotland. And by the afternoon, 1 or 2 developing inland over the Midlands, but nothing like the downpours of recent days. For many, there'll be sunny spells, but don't expect much warmth. Temperatures below average, struggling to get into the teens with that northerly breeze, bringing a fresh feel. And temperatures will drop away pretty sharply this evening as well, with some sunny spells around to end the day, but also 1 or 2 scattered showers across England and Wales. We'll continue to see some feeding into Northern Ireland. Inland across northern England and southern Scotland, most places dry. Northern Scotland seeing showers, and temperatures really struggling here with that northerly breeze, making it feel even colder. That northerly breeze will certainly bring a chill overnight. Temperatures dropping away sharply this evening. We'll continue to see some showers just feeding in there into parts of Wales and certainly into northwest Scotland. But for many, it'll be a dry night And with those lengthy clear spells and the cold air in place, temperatures down to 3 or 4 degrees, even in towns and cities. Pockets of frost across the south, certainly more frost likely over northern England and parts of Scotland where skies stay clear. Saturday brings a bit more cloud coming into the north. There'll be rain on and off across western Scotland, more showers for northwest England, but it's probably fewer showers tomorrow for Northern Ireland and generally a dry day across southern England and eastern parts of England and Scotland too. Again, there'll be some sunny spells, but again, it's on the cool side for the time of year.